All right, hey everybody, welcome to Domainer Week Day 7, and I'm still alive. I'm your host, Arif Mirza, the host of the Domain Social and what's soon to become Domain Podcast. Probably in a few weeks, we'll get started with that. But in the meantime, the transition was the small couple of panels in between the last two socials that slowly, well, no, very quickly evolved into Domainer Week with a couple of fantastic panels every day for 9 days, if that counts as a week and a bit. Yeah, so basically,
Christmas is only 8 days.
I guess, but you gotta go out with a bang, right? It's like, yeah, it was funny because it was first, again, it was supposed to be just a couple of panels in between, and then people said yes, and as you know, from December with the auction I did for the charities, that what sparked the idea again, and one of the charities, well, charities, you got, I mean, you're an association, so it's a very important association for the industry. It's the ICA. So we're going to get to this in about 2 minutes. I'm just going to do a little bit more preamble. Actually, do I have any preamble? I don't know. We could get, well, we'll wait for people to stream in. Usually they come in a couple minutes later. But so yeah, this week is all about trying to raise some funds for charities. Fighting cancer, water school brings water to people with little access to water. There's also going to be funding third world education. And obviously the ICA, which is I'm a member of, very, very proud member of. It's a very important organization that fights for domainer interests and these larger sort of internet board meetings that many people don't know the acronyms of. That's part of the reason why we're here today. That'll be part one with the ICA crew we have right now, and then after it'll be followed by a legal panel, legal dream team of expert lawyers that also includes Zach and Stevan Lieberman and John Berryhill. So that'll be coming up at around 2:30 Eastern. And for now, I have all kinds of things I wanted to say, but I think I've said it all week already. If you want to join us live, which most of you are doing, well, actually, most of you watch on YouTube later on in the day, but you can watch live. As soon as the session starts, check the schedule, refresh the page, the channel page on YouTube. So go to live.domainerweek.com, refresh that page, and you'll be able to stream live directly on YouTube. That's probably where most people are. Oh, geez, and I have to start the Clubhouse side stream. I almost forgot about that. We'll do that right now.
This is what they call multimedia.
There you go. Yeah. So that's started. I almost forgot.
Exactly.
I had 30 seconds to start that, or I had to re-enter all the information. So thank me for reminding myself. So you could also, exactly, you could listen on Clubhouse, or the best way, obviously, is to join us live, where you can use the chat, you can use the Q&A to talk to our panelists, and it's by far the most fun. It's interactive. We get to see who's here, and for that, you want to go to formerly thedomainsocial.com for a couple more days if you're seeing it right now, but DomainPodcast.com forwards to that there. So just register there. It'll be the same mailing list. The format will be changing in the weeks ahead. It'll be more of a panel format like this, usually followed by a social. So you'll be able to come, watch specialists talk on different topics. It'll be an interview or a presentation. It could be some product in the industry, or maybe a registrar will come in and talk about what they're doing, and there'll be a special sort of panel, and then after that it'll be followed by the regular socials we have. Once a month I'll still be doing a regular social. It won't be the weekly anymore, but I can't cut it out altogether. It's been too much fun. So on that note, I think I did most of the preamble. Today is, like I said, a really special day. We have three individuals here from the ICA, so Internet Commerce Association. I'm going to try to expand the acronyms for those of you who are new to the industry. And they're the ICA. You can first of all reach them at the internetcommerce.org. But they're an organization really set up to propel and fight for the interests of domain investors. We've long since the dawn of time, since the dawn of the internet, many domain investors have been frowned upon by the general community, and I think through many individuals, we've tried quite hard to fight that sort of perception to various degrees of success. But on the back end, there's even more things that need to be done on the technical side. Sometimes they're sort of as I said, there's a big association called ICANN, which is they do a lot of the organization of the internet, and they have policies and meetings where they're trying to set sort of rules and guidelines. And sure enough, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, and the ICA is there to make sure that our interests are heard, to make sure that there's fair policies put into place. And it's an uphill battle because they're usually fighting the interests of huge multi-billion-dollar trademark owners. And I remember conversation with Zach at one point. I forget when it was, but he was mentioning that sometimes as a representative of domainer and domain investor interests, he'll go into some of these meetings representing us, and they'll be sitting in a room across from 20 lawyers representing the biggest companies around the world, and he's amazing, but he's one guy. So on that note, I want to hand it over to Zach Muskovich, Nat Cohen, and Kamila Sekiewicz. I hope I got that right. Sekiewicz? Good. All right. I'm going to hand over to them a bit to just explain what it is they do, and we're going to maybe talk a little bit more about some of the things they're specifically working on in the near term. And I know there's some stuff with, I won't spoil it. No spoilers. I'll hand over to you guys. Welcome.
Thank you, Urs. Maybe I'll get started.
I'll let you all introduce yourselves a bit. Go ahead, Kamila, and then you can get started into everything. We have almost as much time as you want today, so I really wanted to focus on you guys today. I appreciate you being here, and again, I appreciate all the work you guys do. So on that note, Kamila.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the kind words. You pretty much did my introduction right there, telling everybody about.
Everybody, forget what you said.
That's okay. We've got lots more to say, but a great job letting everybody know what we do and why we are here, and we'll definitely get into it a little bit more. I was thinking I can get started with telling everybody that we've been around for 15 years right now. So ICA is not something that was just founded. We've been around for 15 years, and we are actually celebrating our 15th anniversary this year. And this will happen in Vegas with an in-person event in Las Vegas in just about 2 weeks. So this is coming up very, very quickly. And for those of you who might not know about this event, it is for ICA members. It is intended to be a social gathering that will allow members to see each other after a very long break in events. Obviously, we've encountered a couple of hurdles with this event, and not everybody will be able to join us, as not everyone's allowed to enter the country, for example. However, we still have a really good group coming. Yeah, I know. We still have a really good group coming. We are organizing many events outdoors so that we keep it as safe as possible, and we still allow for a lot of interactions, a lot of networking, and a lot of just time that we can spend together. We have some amazing sponsors that helped us make this event happen. We have, for example, GoDaddy and Dynadot, Botus, PTL, Above.com, Amar Kuba, Mike Seiger, and I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. If I am, I'll probably come to me by the end of the call. But we have some wonderful sponsors who are making this event happen, and as inexpensive for the members to attend as possible. And so we'll be celebrating 15.
Yeah, 15 years. Yeah, that's what's one of the side benefits of the ICA is that the roster of members of the ICA includes some pretty significant names in this industry. You can go to internetcommerce.org, and you can, I think it says under members, I think it is, you'll be able to see some of the people listed there, and they include a who's who of really the top names in this industry. So I'm a little saddened I can't make it this time, but next time I'll be there for sure.
I know, and it really is unfortunate that not everybody who wants to will be able to join us, but hopefully we can make it happen again under more favorable circumstances.
So one thing about birthdays, they come around every year, so Next
There you
year.
go. There
All right,
you
so
go. Wait,
before you guys get started, I want you guys to introduce yourselves. You're three very important people in this industry who some people might not be aware of, and therefore I feel take for granted, because the three of you have put in a lot of energy into this. So I would really like to hear about the three of you. Just introduce yourselves, and then we can get to the ICA stuff, which is also important. But I think the three of you, I really love people to obviously I think many people in the industry know who you are, but for those who don't, the new people checking on YouTube, maybe interested in starting in domaining for the first time, these are three leaders in this industry. Tell us about yourselves.
so I guess
Kamila, take the lead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start. My name's Kamila Sekiewicz, or Sekiewicz, depending what language
I want people to get it
myself
right.
in.
I don't. How do you pronounce it?
Well, it's Sekiewicz in Polish, but Sekiewicz is perfectly acceptable. And I've been with the ICA for over 5 years now, so a third of ICA's lifetime, I guess. Prior to that, I started my domain name industry career with CEDO back when I used to live in Germany. This was in 2007, I believe. I also worked with NameDrive. I also have a media buying business, so it's sort of domain related, not exactly, but stuck with the industry. And then I joined the ICA originally just to help out with operations, and then took on the role of the executive director. And before I let Zach and Nat introduce themselves, I wanted to just say a huge thank you, because to both of them, I can safely say that the ICA would not be where it is today without their work and then all the time and resources and everything they put into it. So I love working with the entire ICA board and members. These two are here today, so a big thank you from me for all the support that they have given me, especially last few months as I'm planning the event. But so I'll let now them introduce themselves.
Zach or Nat, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nat.
Okay, so thank you, Zach. So I've been a domain investor since late '97. So I'm getting on 25 years. I've been involved with the ICA as a director for probably around 10 years. We have a volunteer board that we all work, contribute our time to make the organization happen. But and then it's Kamila and Zach who are on the front lines doing the work, running the organization, advocating on our behalf. And so they're the two people who the rest of the industry rely on to help us fight our battles and help the industry to grow. And so that's I'll stop there. Turn it over to Zach.
I don't know if I can let you stop there. I think people really need. I think people need to know a little bit more of who you are. I remember. I can't remember, was the last NamesCon before you were on there, and you had a very inspiring talk, and you've done a lot more than just that. Let's talk. Give us another minute of Nat Cohen and your history of all that, because I really appreciate all the work you guys all do, and I really want people to know how you got on board in this wonderful industry. I'm not letting you off the hook that easy.
All right, put me on the spot. So I got in with just on a whim, just investing in registering domain names, thinking that they might have some future value, and I just stuck with it. Got some lucky breaks early on, and then when the UDRP happened, and I lost one of the early UDRPs on a domain name that I thought I had full rights to. And I was like, what's this UDRP? And how bad is that going to be for my business? And am I going to keep losing domains out of my portfolio? So that started me paying attention to, learning about the UDRP. Then when you learn about the UDRP, then you're like, well, it's created by this group called ICANN. So then I have to start learning about ICANN. It's like, what's ICANN? And then you learn about ICANN. You're like, who's this and how does that work? And then you're like, as a domain industry and as domain investors, are we going to just, we probably should engage with. I mean, ICANN is affecting our business, this UDRP is affecting our business. Are we engaging in this process at all, or are we just on the sidelines and letting other people sort of make all the rules for us? These are the rules by which we have to live by, and they're the rules that say when you can lose a domain or keep a domain. So we probably should be engaged in this process in some way. And so that's what led me to pay attention to the ICA, which had already been formed at that point. And there was a lot of changes and some turmoil at that point in the ICA in terms of who its members are going to be and what its focus was going to be, and how it was going to be organized and what its priorities were. So I played a role in trying to keep it open, keep lower level domain investors engaged in part of it and part of their priorities, not just the big companies that were in the space. And that got me, they're like, Nat, well, then you should be get on the board. You should be the one on the board representing us. And so that's how I got on the ICA and have been involved ever since. And more will come out in the conversation. So turning it over to Zach.
All right.
Great. Yeah. And Zach, that would leave you last but not least to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you've gotten to where you are today to be such an important part of domainers' interests, let's say.
Well, just another word about Nat and Kamila, if I may, if you indulge me for a moment, Arif, is that
all the time
Kamila,
in the world.
Yeah, Kamila is the executive director of the ICA, makes everything that we do possible, and can't thank you enough, Kamila, for the dedication that you have to the ICA. And Nat, just so you know, is 100% complete volunteer. He will say that this helps his business for what he does through the ICA, which is 100% true. It helps his business as it helps every domain investor's business. But the dedication and time and effort he's put into the ICA over the years is just incredible. We all owe him a debt of gratitude for that. So the ICA, as you pointed out, Arif, is a trade association and looks after and advocates for the rights of domain investors. It's primarily involved in the policy front, and we'll talk about some of the issues that we've been involved with over the years. And it's also a tremendous networking opportunity, as you mentioned. The heavy hitters of the industry are in the ICA, and that's why we're looking forward to this in-person social meeting in 2 weeks in Las Vegas. But in terms of me, I've been doing domain name law since 1999. I feel like saying since 1922 because it feels that long. But it's been since 1999, and I started off doing domain name disputes and domain name transactions, buying and selling websites and domain names on behalf of clients. And then something unforgivable happened about 4 years ago. Nat invited me to be on the board of the ICA as a volunteer, and I will never let him live that down. So I served as a volunteer board member, and we have amazing volunteer board members from every facet of the industry. Maybe Kamila will mention them specifically as we continue with this conversation. But so I started off as a volunteer board member, and then I became the interim and then general counsel. I guess it's probably about 3 years ago now. It's hard to keep track of time. And so what my primary role is representing the ICA at ICANN in legal and policy matters outside of ICANN, and creating educational programs for domain name investors and dealing with a lot of the issues that need to be resolved in the industry. We'll talk about some of the things that the ICA does in that respect. And so really, we're dedicated to the industry a lot like you are, Arif, and it's a member-driven organization. What that means is that the members decide what's a priority, what we should focus on by and large, and it's all funded through memberships, starting off at very small nominal fee memberships, all the way to some very substantial sums that our platinum sponsors provide to us, and makes all the work here possible that we do. And so Kamila and I are part-time employees of the ICA. We both have our other businesses. I've got my law practice. Kamila has her online marketing business, and Nat has his portfolio business. He's one of the preeminent domain name investors. Everyone's doing something else, but we've all taken the time to help push the industry forward. And we're very proud of how far the industry has come over the course of these years.
Yeah, and as well you should be. I know you guys do a lot of important work, and that's why I'm really proud to have all three of you here today. And you can feel free to name drop those sponsors at some point if you want to. They're helping out. I appreciate everybody who supports the ICA. Actually, before we get too much started, I'll actually say I'm personally a member of the ICA, and I invite anybody if you're starting to progress in this industry. Again, internetcommerce.org. You can be a member for as little. I think they've lowered the lowest tier is $25 a month now. You get a lot of benefits with that. Well, the biggest benefit being you have this powerhouse of industry leaders fighting for your interests behind the scenes. So you can sit back and with your contribution, you can say that you're fighting for the interests of domain investors, and you don't have to get off your couch. That's the one thing. But again, you have a large network of real serious players in this industry to network with. And yeah, so again, I would ask anybody in this industry with the means to go and join the ICA. So well, I'll probably repeat that a few times. That's one of the goals of this week, was to bring a little bit more awareness to the ICA and to actually try to bring in more membership. So anybody who wants to who's thinking about it, who's not too sure and needs further explanations, well, hopefully after today you'll know. But please don't hesitate to reach out to me at any time. I'm sure you can reach out to any of the three here as well, because it's very important work they do. It might sound a little bit boring to some. It certainly doesn't to me, but it's really important work. So again, I really appreciate what you guys do, and I'll turn off my mic and let you guys talk about what it is you do, I guess.
But with that, I would like to take the opportunity. I thank Zach, I thank Nat for their work, but a big thank you to you, not only for the work on Domain Social, but for being an ICA member, for organizing these charity events where you do benefit the ICA as well. Not only financially, but you mention us all the time, and that is we've had a number of new ICA members who joined because of you, because of what you do. And thank you for organizing, for having us on today. It is really appreciated, and it goes a long way. So
totally my pleasure. Totally my pleasure. I'll be doing it long time into the future.
Thank you. We do appreciate it, and I hope it is sort of a testament to our work, to Zach's work, to everything that that we do. As Zach said, we are here only part-time, but we are trying to to do whatever we can to benefit the industry. We have grown tremendously over the last few years. We're over 150 members now, I believe. I know when I started, I think we were like around 80 or some 70. I
think even this December, or around when I did the charity auction, I think is when you just crossed the 100 threshold. So yeah. It's been a good year then. It's good to hear.
It has been, and so yeah, you've had a little bit to do with it as well.
I don't think it's just me, but I think it's more a testament of the work you guys do. But a team effort.
Thank you.
We'll call it a team effort.
There you go. Yes, we've had tremendous growth this year. Even the last few weeks, maybe the event has something to do with it. It's kind of cyclical, the signups, but the last few months, we've definitely had a few signups, and so I'll be sending out another welcome email. I'll just be combining a lot of names together so they don't come out individually. But yeah, that's on that way of thank you. And as Zach mentioned, to all of our sponsors, I mention them all the time. We have platinum sponsors. I should name them. We've got Cito, who has been with us from the very beginning. Jeremiah Johnson is also on the board of the ICA, and he has been I believe from the beginning. So a tremendous contribution on their part. We have GoDaddy and now Paul Nix, who's on the board of the ICA, and Paul has also, prior to Paul, it was Bob Mountain. Now it's Paul Nix, and both of them have done a lot, in terms of shaping the ICA, helping us grow. We have Namebright, who's a longtime member, Parking Crew, and now Adam Wagner is also on the board of directors with Parking Crew, and This is his first year on the board of directors. He unfortunately won't be able to come to Vegas because he's outside of the U.S. But yeah, he has helped us with the monetization side. And we have Create.com, who's also a platinum member. And we have, like I said, 150 members. I wish I could name everybody, just a few too many, but we appreciate everything that everybody does for us. From the smallest members, as you said, it's $25 a month or $300 a year. So this is our newest, so this is our smallest, newest level. And we introduced it as a way to allow, smaller, just maybe newbie domainers who are just interested or in what we're doing, might not have the means to join us at any higher level to join the ICA as well. We have a $600 a year, that's $50 a month membership. And then we have corporate memberships that range from $1,000 to $25,000 a year. So that's my bit on memberships, and a big thank you to all of them.
Well, that's a really great summary of the membership levels. As you mentioned, please reach out to Kamila at internetcommerce.org to become a member, get more information. But let's tell them a little bit about the things that we do as an organization. We have some really exciting things that we've done, and especially that are coming up. Okay, like my personal favorite of something that's coming up is, so we're you've all heard about the UDRP, or at least you've heard the term. These are domain name disputes where a trademark owner comes after a domain investor's domain name, or often a cyberspar's domain name. But we're not concerned about trademark owners going after cyberspar's domain names. We're concerned about trademark owners going after domain investors' domain names. And so since 1999, there's been something like 75 or 80,000 UDRP disputes all over the world. And many of them have involved domain name investors. Not a significant amount, most are cyber squatters, but enough to piss us off. For example, Nat got into the ICA because somebody pissed him off. They brought a UDRP against his pristine dictionary word domain name, prove.com, back in, what was it, 1999, Nat? 2000, okay. And that's what led him to be interested in the UDRP. But guys like John Berryhill and Karen Bernstein and all these domain name lawyers have been handling these disputes for domain investors for all these years. But for the very, very first time, live and direct at NamesCon, we are going to be having the very first in-person live UDRP hearing, okay? It's never been done before. It's always done by paper. A complaint is filed by email, response is filed by email, decision comes out by email. Andrew blogs about it. We read about it on DomainInvesting.com decision. We're actually going to have 3 real UDRP panelists, three of the top UDRP panels in the world. We're going to have one of the top complainant counsel in the world. We're going to have one of the top respondent counsel in the world. They're going to battle it out, a UDRP battle royale over the domain name redball.com. Redball.com is the disputed domain name. We created a whole set of facts. It starts off with a domain name investor, buying this domain name, and he also had other similar names like Golden Ball, Yellow Ball, but it was also correspond to the name of a famous soft drink company in Thailand called Red Ball. Okay. And so these are the facts that we've created that are based and inspired on real world facts. And we're going to see the counsel make their arguments. We're going to see the panelists deliberate in real time, right in front of us, and issue a decision. That's happening September 24th, which is a Friday, around 3:50 UTC, something like that. UTC always confuses me, but it's around there. You can see it's on stage 2. You can go to the NamesCon online agenda and see it. This has never been done before, and we're doing this. This is one of my favorite parts about it. We're doing this in conjunction with, don't faint, the International Trademark Association. Okay, so in other words, the people that bring the UDRPs, they've agreed to come on board with us and present this jointly. This what we call a moot, M-O-O-T, a moot UDRP, a mock UDRP trial. And so they've joined on to it because well, it took some convincing. Okay, it took some convincing, but they've signed on. That's all you need to know, and we're going to be doing it together collaboratively. And so this is something not to be missed. And so what you could take from that is a few things. One, the ICA is interested in exploring and debating UDRP issues of concern to investors. So that's part of the reason why we're doing it. The second thing that this demonstrates is the ICA is interested in changing policy at ICANN, and that takes reaching out, as they say, across the aisle, making alliances and collaborating constructively, even with people who may have an adversarial position to your own, and that's what we're doing with INTA, and this really showcases what the ICA is all about. So that's something that's really exciting that's coming up in just over 2 weeks. And so if you haven't signed up for names sign, you should do that just to see this event. But they've got a whole bunch of other things that are fascinating there as well.
I can't wait for that. Actually, I'll be doing the closing party on the same day later on that day. I think UTC. I think that would be around 11 something a.m. Eastern. Yes. I think it is. It's 4 hours. That would be
11:50 a.m. Eastern, exactly, as Zach said. And if I just may add something to this, so I don't know if everybody understands the magnitude of what Zach is doing here and what this means for the ICA and for the industry in general. I mean, he is forming alliances that even just a few years ago we wouldn't think were possible. I mean, for us to be doing stuff with the INTA, this is groundbreaking, if I may say so. And for us to be doing this together with them is it's never been done before. So
I think it's important. I at least for myself, I know I don't want to speak on behalf of anybody else, but for myself, like, I mean, these trademark rules, especially when they apply to domains, I think they're important. I think yes, there are some domain investors who do abuse their rights or the domains of in their portfolio. Like, well, they do infringe, let me put it that way. But there are other cases where there are complaints made that are totally unjustified. And I think that's I think maybe people don't understand. I personally think there's about 45% of maybe 40% of domain investors who don't take trademarks seriously enough. And then, there's also those who take them too seriously. And that's again, why something like this will be amazing, because it helps shed some light on, what is allowed and what isn't allowed, And anyways, I'll let you get back to it. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And, I've been wanting to say this, Arif, since I started watching live broadcasts of YouTube. But Phil Buckingham, thank you for the super chat. Just have to say it. But listen, so when we see cases that are problematic, UDRP cases that are problematic, that are unfairly decided, how does one go about making it so that doesn't happen again, right? I mean, what are the options? You could call up and threaten the panelists. That's one. That doesn't work and it's illegal. Can't do that. You could try to get different panelists on there, but often it's not up to you. They're assigned to your case. You can write articles on Circle ID to try to explain some of these issues to the broad public and panelists in particular. That's what the ICA does. Nat Cohen and I have collaborated on many articles on Circle ID that try to explain these complex issues to panelists so they rule more fairly. You could connect with panelists and with complainants counsel and explain to them where decisions that have been made have been wrong and where they can be improved. And we do that literally every week at the ICA. Nat Cohen and I spend an hour a week with UDRP panels and with complainants counsel going over every UDRP case of interest and of concern as it comes out. And that's part of the educational efforts that we make. Plus, we participate in the ICANN working groups that actually formulate and draft the policies. And the first round of it took 3 years or something like that, at least 2.5. And the second round is going to start up again shortly, maybe in 2022, 2023. And we're going to actually be going over the UDRP paragraph by paragraph, line by line, and reviewing it because it's the first time it's been reviewed in 20 years. So those are the things that we do with you on the UDRP front. But we've also expanded this year, and Kamila will tell you a little bit about this. We've expanded into some educational sessions that we provide with the absolute best guests that you won't see anywhere else, and publish some materials that you can't get anywhere else that are invaluable. Maybe Kamila, you want to say a few words about that?
Thank you. Yes. So one of the things that we do for for our members and for the industry is try to provide sort of educational resources. And we started with calls, monthly calls for ICA members, where we try to bring experts on different fields, different topics and subjects. And I think, Arif, you participated in a number of those. We last month had a call that was open to the general public, for example, and it spoke about the new round of the next round of the new GTLD applications, for example. And that was a webinar with, we had around, I think, just under 100 people participating on a call with the absolute experts in their particular field. We've had calls with our accountant, for example, who spoke about taxation and domaining, which is not an easy, it's a subject that a lot of people have questions on. Another thing that we will be doing, I think, kind of that we already did for our members, for example, is we'll be speaking about a leasing agreement. Leasing agreements have been very popular in the last few years. And so what we did is we put a number of annotated agreements. We had a brokerage agreement, a sales agreement, I believe, and now we also put out the leasing agreement, and we'll be going over how it is, what it is, how it is used, going over any questions that people might have, what is important to be put in a particular in a particular agreement. So those are some of the things that we're doing for our members, and like I said, some of it is extended to the industry in general.
So I think you can see that we are blessed with two of the best possible ambassadors that the industry could have, in Kamila and Zach here, and they present a very positive face to the industry. And one of the main challenges that the ICA has been dealing with since the very beginning is the bad reputation that the industry has, and that we were shunned, we were looked at as parasites. Our business model was looked at as an illegitimate business model where we're just sort of the only value these domain names have could possibly be to someone who had a trademark on it, and we were just there trying to sell it to people who have trademarks, and that the whole business in fact is an illegitimate business. And when we first tried to get engagement with ICANN, we really weren't welcome. There was no place for us to go. In the UDRPs, there's many of the panelists were like, "You're a domain investor. We're taking the domain away from you because what you're doing is wrong." So that's the starting point where we started from. And the work that Zach and Kamila are doing, the outreach, the ability to build relationships is critical. And presenting ourselves and engaging with some of the biggest companies in the industry, in the world, who are active at ICANN, and saying, this is a normal business. This is a business like any other business, and we have rights too, and we should have a voice at the table. We should have input into these policies that are affecting us. That was sort of the concept behind the ICA, and it's thanks Kamila is doing great outreach. Zach has an amazing ability to build relationships, even with people we disagree with, like this. And the moot court and the INTA is one example of that. The work he does at ICANN is another example of that. He's now in a leadership position, not a very important one, but still a leadership position at the business constituency. So this evolution that people who might be relatively new to the industry may take for granted is actually in itself a huge accomplishment. And the fact is that Kamila and Zach wouldn't be here, wouldn't be working at all if it wasn't for the ICA members. And so it's by the ICA members as a group pulling or putting in a little bit each, contributing a little bit each to collectively that allows this work to happen for all of our benefit. And so that's one of the reasons to join, that you if you make money, if your domain business is important to you and you want to protect it and you want to help it grow in the future, then we can all join together and put a little bit towards the work that's being done to protect it and to allow it to thrive. So that's and there's also these other collateral benefits like the education, the networking. We have a legal benefit program where you get discounts if you need a lawyer. We're having the meetup where you can network and meet in person. So we are also coming up with benefits from being part of this group that are in addition to the policy work that we do.
Right, but this could be an excellent segue to talk about why is our work important to domain name investors? What is it that we do? And one of the most important things that we do is we try to preserve the asset value of domain names. Our industry is a little bit different than other industries. Our assets are kind of just, they're created and governed by policies, and those policies can change, and through that change the asset value of a domain name. And this is what we're doing. We are trying to make sure that these policies remain in place, that they protect the asset value of a domain name so that you can continue using them as such.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. It's one that I try to make as well often, Kamila, and that's that there are powerful forces at work in this industry, not in the domain investing industry, but in the domain name industry more broadly, that look upon domain name investing with considerable envy. They really find that the money that can be made with domain name investing is attractive. They would like to get in on it and take it all for themselves. And I'm talking about certain registry interests primarily. So for example, there's industry players that would like to eliminate having domain names be bought and sold in the secondary market, other than a market that they own and control themselves at the registry level. So think about that. Imagine if the ICANN rules were changed so that domain names that expire get sold at the registry level for whatever the registry decides to sell them for and the market demands. It would effectively displace the secondary market that you all participate in and take it over for themselves. Or suppose that price caps on .com domain names were removed entirely. I'm not talking about moving from 785 to 823. I'm talking about moving from 785 to 50 or 500 or $10,000 a year. These are all policy changes that would be monumental and potentially lethal for the domain name industry. And so somebody needs to be on guard against that. Some organization needs to be on guard against that. And the ICA, thankfully, and long before I got here, has been on guard against that. And that's one of the primary functions of the ICA is as well. And that often reminds me of how in 2012, there was one of these major efforts by powerful industry players to jack up the price of .com domain names. And that was thankfully staved off for 9 years at least, until now. And that single effort saved potentially hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars within the industry. The reason that you can say that is that if that 785 price back in 2012 had been able to go up to $8 or $9 or 10, 11, 12 over time, all those savings are money that you all have saved in renewal fees for the last 9 years, added all up across the industry. Those are the kinds of major dollar and cents issues that are at play here as well.
Yeah, if you're looking at an investment, the budget of the ICA is relatively quite small given the size of the industry, and the impact is really quite huge. And as Zach and Kamila were just talking about, these domain names that we own are defined by are defined by pieces of paper. They're defined by words in documents, and when those words change, then what we own changes. So that's a nervous feeling that somebody could revise a line in a document or an agreement, and all of a sudden what you own has much less value, or you can do very much less with it. And as Zach was talking about, this at ICANN, there's this whole effort to blur the lines between the legacy GTLDs like COM, NET, and ORG, and the new GTLDs. And we know the new GTLD registries can premium price. They have the ability to, like, say, this domain is $2,500 renewal. This one is $20 renewal. And the .com, .org, .net people want to be able to have those. They basically say it's unfair to us that we don't get those same powers as well. So there's that whole issue the whole initiative that's going on at ICANN that would have a huge impact on us. And that's one of the other areas. I think Chuck asked this question: what are some of the other risks? That's one of the big risks that we're keeping an eye on and that we're working.
Yeah, those are. I don't think people realize how much that would change things up if the traditional TLDs were able to have premium listings or to have their own auctions and stuff like that. It sounds like a small little thing, but it would totally change the game as domain investors. It would make it from being able to acquire stuff relatively simply and at good prices to imagine if every .com that expired, VeriSign decided to put it up $50, $100, just because they knew there was previous interest. So there is now. I know that would remove many of the players at my level completely from the game. So yeah, I think that's important that they don't get those things, because for me the new Gs I see as being like somebody's more, if you're looking at transit, right? That's somebody's buying a car, they want to buy a Ferrari, fine, but those traditional original TLDs were the foundation of the internet. They were given to these companies relatively easy, like there's no ongoing auction process every time for .com, right? Which I think there should be. But they were giving it to them relatively simply, and I think they're more what I see as the mass transit, right? It's like, yeah, there should be some level of governance-ship that makes it accessible to everybody, so that there can be an internet, available to use for the common person who can't afford to pay, $10,000 to hand register a .com per se.
And actually, what you're saying is actually part of the arguments that are being used at ICANN in favor of these higher prices, in favor of doing this. It's like, if we do this, we'll get rid of domain investors, and that's seen as a good thing in some quarters. So that what's an argument that we think is bad to some people is actually a good thing. That's one of the things that we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's incredible that you will hear in the halls of ICANN and ICANN meetings, and without batting an eye, that we need to raise prices to get rid of domain investors. Domain investors are a scourge of the market. There's very few supporters for domain name investing in ICANN. However, we've seen over the last number of years a gradual improvement in the reputation of domain investors. It's nowhere near where it has to be, but a gradual improvement nonetheless. One of the things that I remind myself is that the name Internet Commerce Association. Why is it called the Internet Commerce Association? Why is it called like Domain Name Association or the Domain Name Trade Association? It's an interesting reason, I believe, that the name was picked, probably for this reason 15 years ago, is that at the time, and now as well, but at the time in particular, we were trying as an industry to portray and represent ourselves as a legitimate business group. This is investing in a real asset. These aren't scalpers. These aren't bottom feeders. These are people that use their skill and time and their own money to go and find good domain names and then participate in the secondary market by finding the right buyers for these domain names. And of course, they make a profit on them. That's what capitalism is all about. And so we are involved in internet commerce. We are the Internet Commerce Association, right? And that's the image that we are trying to portray to the ICANN and the broader public at the time. And that's what we're still trying to do as well today. But improvements have significantly been made in that regard. And you know, it's like the whole Rodney Dangerfield, domain name investors get no respect. So that's one of the things we're working on.
Hopefully, thanks to you guys, it does. We do get a little bit more respect.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You know, Arif, one of the favorite sessions that the ICA put on is it was for the at-large constituency of the ICANN. Well, it's a strange sounding name, at-large constituency. What it means is that it's just one of the big groups or constituencies within ICANN that ostensibly represents end users of the internet. Okay, we won't get into what that means, but that's who they represent. And there was a presentation that they put on that was essentially like how domain name investing should be banned, should get rid of it altogether, right? This is what was being advocated seriously by ICANN, or by someone within the ICANN stakeholder groups. And so when we heard about that, you know, we put together this presentation, a counter presentation for it, where we made the pitch and the explanation in detail, with facts, with figures, with images, with PowerPoint, with narrative, sound and light, and explain to them that domain name investors are hugely important and are a net benefit to the domain industry in the secondary market. And that was critical in that, because he actually lives and breathes domain investing as, you know, as a domain portfolio owner. So he was able to think through this and come up with the best way of explaining to them why domain investing helps business. And that, maybe you wouldn't mind sharing a few words about that.
I just put the link to it in the chat if anybody wants to see it. But yeah, I mean, we were trying to talk about how, you know, speculating happens in every market, and that it's no real difference in domain name investing, and the aftermarkets play a role. You know, they're talking about buying and reselling domain names, moving them from a lower value use to a higher value use, allowing somebody who has a domain name they no longer need to sell it for cash tomorrow. These are all roles that the domain investors play to help facilitate, you know, that it's a beneficial role that we play in making the domain name aftermarket work better and work more smoothly, and get rid of a lot of friction that could be there without us. So that was sort of the basic pitch behind the presentation. And I think it was relatively well received, and you know, people look at it maybe a little bit differently if they look at it that way.
Can you explain a little bit more about how the domain name what role domain name investors play in the market? I know that the best way of understanding is to see that presentation, which that shared the link. But I think it's very helpful for domain name investors to be able to defend themselves too, right? So that, you know, so it's, if you're able to grasp onto this concept of the role that domain investors play, it can help you with buyers who are accusing you of doing something wrong just by being a domain investor. It can certainly help you with your friends and family if they make a comment. But maybe you could just explain how domain investors, what role do they play?
I think that the key concept is liquidity, that domain investors provide liquidity. And as we know, domain names are a highly illiquid, you know, asset. It's not like a commodity like well, lumber would be a bad choice, I guess, these days, but where you can, everything's the same. And if you want to sell some, there's a price in the market and there's tons of people buying and selling the same exact thing every day. Each domain is unique. A potential buyer or end user or user might not come around for 5, 10, 15 years that really wants that particular domain name. And if you have the domain name and you're retired or you want to raise cash for something, you're like, hey, I want to sell this. I know it has some value, but who's going to pay me for it? If it wasn't for domain investors, you might be somewhat stuck because you might have to wait the 5, 10, 15 years before someone who really wants it comes around. So the fact that we're able to put cash on the table tomorrow, we assume the risk, as you put it, we step in the shoes of the seller. We sort of just provide that sort of continuity of ownership. You say, you don't want it anymore, we'll take it off your hands. Here's cash. I don't see it as being that different from like a jeweler where you have jewelry, you don't need it anymore. You sell it to the jeweler puts it in their stock, and then they wait for someone who wants to buy that particular ring or necklace to buy it. And no one accuses jewelers of being like an awful business or like parasites or anything like that. It's just a normal everyday function that they provide. And to some degree, that's what we provide as well. And I know we talked about also that we provide on the flip side, like as a buyer coming in, if you want a particular necklace or I guess the example of the presentation was like a particular type of old antique, an antique chest or something. Do you go around to all the yard sales, all the auctions, all the farmhouses that are selling all the estate sales for 10 years, trying to find the one chest that you want, that one antique chest, or do you walk into that antique store where someone has done that work for 10 years already, accumulated, put together a nice curated collection, and you go and I say, here are my 5 antique desks. This is the one I want, Chet. This is the one I like the best. I'm buying this one and I can get it delivered to me tomorrow. That's on the flip side, another beneficial role that domain investors play by doing that work of sourcing the domains. And sometimes it can take months, as we know, to let someone transition away, or they need to use their email address for a few months. So to be able to provide a clean domain name that someone can buy tomorrow is a great benefit to many buyers. So that's another way that domain investors help. So those were some of the pit points that we made in that presentation.
Yeah, no, that was great. I encourage you all to read that. Hey, we have a couple unanswered questions in the queue on a different topic. Maybe we can circle back for UDRP for a second, but also for questions from Todd, Ryan, and Chuck. But Todd, Ryan, Chuck, and others, there's going to be a legal session where you have a few domain name attorneys coming up at 2:30. It's going to be Steve Lieberman, John Berryhill, and myself. And so we'll be able to talk about UDRP even more then. But why don't we answer Todd Ryan's question here first? Nat, what can an individual domain investor do to help correct the issues/problems with the UDRP policy? What can an individual domain investor do?
I don't know.
Okay.
Showing the ICA.
Besides the obvious, yes, join the ICA, support the work. No, it's a tough, challenging thing. How do you get involved as an individual? I was involved, and others were involved with the first round of the UDRP review, but now it looks like they're going to be limiting participation. So even if you want to be involved, you may not be able to be involved. I don't know. I actually generally don't really have a good answer to that question. Zach, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm afraid to break it to you, Dr. Cohen, but I'm looking at an individual domain investor who's helping to correct the UDRP policy. That's what you're doing, right? So, this is something that individuals can do. ICA membership is great because it contributes to the funds and resources we have to fight the UDRP on behalf of individual domain investors. But if individual domain investors such as yourself, Todd, want to go a step further, we would love to see that and help you with that. There are things that individuals can do within the auspices of the ICA to help develop and write policies, to help make contacts, to participate in ICANN functions, whether it's directly as a working group member or as a business constituency member. The ICA is a member of the business constituency at ICANN. We can help facilitate your membership in the business constituency. I happen to be chair of the credentials committee of the business constituency. So you're talking
It's a very important position within the
Yes,
PC. Yeah.
yes. If you're talking to the right person, if you want to join the business constituency, and that helps you get open the door into the policy development process, of which UDRP is part of it. So those are the things an individual can do. Both provide, become a member and provide funding for others to do it, and to take on some responsibility yourself. And the third thing you can do, you'll hear about in the upcoming legal session, is hire yourself a good domain name attorney. You'll hear from Berryhill and Stevan about that. All right. So next question from Chuck, and I have to, okay. Other than UDRPs, what do panelists feel are the greatest risks that threaten the rights of domain investors? Other than UDRPs, what do panelists, I guess that's us, feel are the greatest risks that threaten the rights of domain investors? What is on their agenda? Other than UDRPs, well, I think we talked about that bit, Chuck, is that's the policy things that Kamila and Nat mentioned, how with the stroke of a pen, what owning a domain name means can change, right? You know what owning a domain name means. You know what rights you have now to sell it, to resell it, to renew it at a fixed rate, et cetera. All those things can change. And those decisions don't happen in Congress. They don't happen at City Council. They happen to a large extent at ICANN and with the Department of Commerce and Department of Justice and NTIA in Washington, D.C. And so those are all things that we are involved in and monitor. All right, we've closed the queue. Is there anything in the chat we should be looking at here, Reed?
I actually have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
What interests me specifically is, obviously there's supposed to be new talks coming about the UDRP, reforming them a bit or changing them a bit. Can you just touch up a little bit on specifically what the dangers of what the possible dangers of the new changes are going to be, and what we're trying to change, or what we'd like to have defended within them?
Yeah, sure. And so I'll give an answer to that, Arif, is that let's say that you weren't Arif. Let's say that you were trademark counsel for Facebook or for Coca-Cola. And I told you, Arif, as you know, you're trademark counsel for Coca-Cola or Facebook, that there's going to be a new UDRP round, a review round coming up. What are the changes you'd like to see on behalf of Facebook and Coca-Cola and other brand owners? How would you like to see the UDRP change? Well, I think that it's too expensive for trademark owners. I think that maybe we should, $5 is a good price. And I don't know why we need to have panelists think about the cases for so long and write lengthy decisions. Like, can't they do it within the next 15 minutes by email? And why should domain name registrants be able to claim a legitimate interest as an investor? Why don't we get rid of that? And suppose there's a bad PPC link on the website, can we take away the domain name? So in other words, there's wish lists that I'm sure are out there by trademark owners. And I give you extreme examples, but those are the kind of things that could be brought up, because anything can be brought up, anything can be changed. And so, but more, I wouldn't say more reasonable, but more expected things that are going to come up is changing the UDRP so that even if you registered your domain name in '99 and the trademark didn't come up until last Tuesday, like in other words, you've got 20 years as a trademark owner, that your domain name can be taken away for registration in bad faith because, for example, you renewed it in bad faith, or perhaps you inadvertently had a bad PPC lander from your registrar on there. So that's something that we can expect to hear. Those are the kinds of things that are going to come up in a phase two. I don't know, Nat, if you want to add anything to that.
I think those are the key risks. I mean, and as Arif was mentioning before, like we're really outnumbered on these working groups. So it's a real challenge because, I think it's already, way too far tilted in the favor of the brand owners. And I would like to see it more balanced in our favor. But in terms of who's actually sitting at the table, it's mostly brand owners and their representatives, and they want to see it even more favorable to them. So to get any movement in our direction, where I think it needs to be fairer to both parties, is going to be extremely tough because they're going to be trying to push it more the other direction. And there's numerous ways that I think it could be, revised, reformed, whatever, to make it a little more fair. I mean, I don't know if Zach wants to talk about that, but there's a long wish list that we have too. But whether we're going to get any of those changes through this group is a big open question. And that's why we're trying a lot of advocacy. We're trying to make it show that what we're asking for is reasonable, and that the way things are set up now is unreasonable and is unfair. And we're kind of, at least my mind, I'm trying to shame them to some degree, to say how can you guys really, with a straight face, say that this is a fair way to run things when you're so blatantly tilting at things in one direction, and you're so blatantly excluding representatives of domain registrants from participating in this process. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but it's politics, and it's power, and it's self-interest, and it's, as we see from other examples of politics, it's not always pretty, and it doesn't always result in a fair outcome.
Yeah, Zach, was there anything not mentioned that maybe there's some things that we could actually maybe help get better conditions for us in this, maybe loser pays type of thing, or I think even that, as simple as that, that's the thing. Sometimes domain investors get challenged from these ridiculous sort of UDRPs. Again, I don't want to say they're all ridiculous. I think there's the whole process of UDRP has its place. However, a lot of them are really ridiculous, and I think in certain cases when it's reverse name hijacking is found to be a thing, there's zero consequences for these multi-billion-dollar companies coming in and picking on the small guy. Is there anything that we can be hopeful in this new round of changes?
Yeah, Reef. One of the things that we're seriously looking at is to strengthen what it takes to take away a domain name from a bona fide domain name investor. I'm not talking about a cyber squatter. Strengthening, making more robust the threshold that a complainant needs to meet to take away a domain name, whether that's through changes in the UDRP or interpretations of the UDRP, or which panelists are appointed to the UDRP, those kinds of changes. Conversely, complainants attorneys, justifiably have a problem with the UDRP2 in one respect. If there's a blatant typo of Coca-Cola.com that's selling, some fake soda pop, why does it take $1,500, few thousand legal fees, 60 days for them to get this no-brainer domain name out of their hands, right? Maybe that should be made easier for them. Maybe if we make it easier for them, it should be tough for them to get a domain name like crew.com out of Nat's cold dead hands, right? So those are the kinds of things that we could look at. There's always going to be a give and take. I know how frustrating it is to get RDNA, to have RDNH cases made against you. No fault of yours, registered domain name good faith, complainant brings a case, maybe they don't even pay for the lawyer, maybe they bring themselves, total bullshit case, if you can forgive the Latin term from one of my law professors. And you win the case, the panel says, clearly the complainant, no case, it's RDNH, and that's a congratulations. You've got RDNH complaining. You still have to pay your legal fees. You still have to stress out about losing your domain name. You still have to go through this process. It's not a big win, is it? Right? You just get to keep your property is not a big win. So a lot of people are saying, there's got to be a penalty. Make the complainant who gets found guilty of RDNH pay, right? And make it a loser pay system. Whoever loses should pay. So it's not just complainants who are found guilty of RD&H, respondents, registrants should have to pay too, right? If they lose. So a loser pay system sounds fair, right? It does sound fair. The problem that some complainant trademark owners have is that they know that if they bring an RD&H case and they're Coca-Cola, they're going to have to write a check because I know their address in Atlanta. I can collect the money. They're going to have to keep the check, right? But suppose the complainant's attorney has to bring their complaint against a typo of Coca-Cola against a guy who is these nuts, 123 Main Street, okay? You're never going to be able to find the guy. They're going to be able to collect $1 from him. So they're like, it doesn't help loser pays, right? So these are the conversations we have. But
okay. yeah. I mean, I agree with it, with all of that. Yeah, it would be. I mean, I think there are a lot of elements to it. I do like. I mean, the basics of it, the three steps, I think are well thought out. They're probably, as experts, you guys probably have little tweaks you like to make of it. I don't think my personal issue with UDRP isn't so much what it is. It's exactly that. It can be used to bully in unfair cases and there's no consequences. And also that oftentimes the unfortunate reality is sometimes, I don't know, it's not my place to say panelists make a wrong decision, but I think I can say it, and that there's some cases where that is the issue, right? That the decision made is clearly goes against what the intent of the process is.
Yeah, and there is a remedy for that. Currently, it's suing RD&H complainant in court. That's done it a couple times, and it can be effective, but it's expensive. It takes effort. But also, Arif, is it okay if I leave for a few minutes because I have the 215?
Yeah.
What I suggest is Kamila just made this a comment in chat about this new project that we're doing with case summaries, and maybe if you could ask her about that, because that's a brand new exciting project. I'm going to leave you. I'll be back at 2:15 for the next.
Oh no, you're the next one's 2:30. So you take your
2:30?
You come back a couple minutes early if you want, but yeah, take your time. Yeah,
Okay,
I really
so
appreciate being here today.
if it's at 2:30, then I'll stay till 2:15. That's
We're here with scheduled 2:15, but the next one at 2:30. So if you can talk for a few more minutes if you want. I can ramble in between. But I think everybody would rather hear you guys rambling. But yeah, if you have to go, come back, it's fine.
Okay.
There's sessions at 2:30.
But
I don't know more though. Yeah, go ahead, Kamila.
So there is a question in the chat. I don't know if Zach, if you want to take a couple of minutes just to the differences between UDRP and URS, Chuck. No, so it's not in the chat. Sorry, it's in the Q&A. UDRP and URS.
All right. So yeah, that would be a great question to ask the next panel as well, because they're the UDRP experts. But essentially, URS is like sometimes called a UDRP light. It is a expedited, cheaper procedure available for new GTLD domain names only, not for .com, for example. And it was reviewed during the first phase of the ICANN review process, and it was kept largely intact, but it kept restricted to new GTLDs only.
Thanks, Zach. So yeah, I would love to just take a moment and talk about the new project that we just rolled out last week, and we do have Zach to thank for the conception of it. So basically, what we're doing in collaboration with Ankur, who has Rahaja, I believe the last name is pronounced.
Rahija. He's with us here. Ankur is in the house. Hey, Ankur.
Hi, Ankur. Yeah. So Ankur is doing an amazing job in what he does. He has this incredible ability to summarize UDRP cases. And I don't know if you've ever read UDRP cases. They are not short. They're not easy. There is a lot that goes into
I've tried a couple. I've tried to help a couple of domainers and a couple of actually pretty significant sort of claims, and they're tedious, I'll have to say.
So you'll exactly. So you'll probably appreciate an ability to summarize it in a single tweet. And so this is what Ankur has been doing for a while, and now he does it on behalf of the ICA. And also, what we're doing is every Monday we take a summary, a digest of these summaries, and we put it together into a newsletter, send it out to ICA members, UDRP panelists, and just anybody who signs up for that newsletter. And we also publish it on our website. And I believe this is extremely important and gives everybody sort of an overview of what a UDRP is, and those and a quick and accessible way of reading the cases, of getting to know what is happening, what happened, what was ruled, and what the final decision was. And that we just started last week. And we sent out 2 newsletters right now. We'll continue doing that every single Monday. So a big thank you to Ankur for the work that he's doing with us. It's incredible.
Yeah, and Ankur is a UDRP panelist, by the way. And this was Nat's original idea to create these, weekly digests. Nat, what do you think one of the big benefits of doing this is, in addition to helping people stay informed of the new cases as they come out?
I think you could better answer that than I, but we're, I think it's a useful resource on its own regard, because panelists have a hard time keeping up with all the cases, and they don't know, which cases are worth paying attention to. There was just a recent case where a panel made a decision that was completely opposite to a previous case, and didn't seem to be aware that the previous case had even, been issued, or that there was that decision. So just for the sort of the good of the consistency of the UDRP jurisprudence, so to speak, to let people know about these cases and give them a way to quickly and easily be informed is a benefit. I think it also helps, credibility for the ICA that we're providing this service. And, from time to time, it may give Zach an opportunity to express his views on certain decisions that might be problematic, and get those thoughts out to a broader audience of panelists.
Yeah, we saw that Ankur was doing these 240 character UDRP case summaries, as Kamila mentioned, and so we said, we'd love for you to do that on behalf of the ICA. So the tweets that you see on a daily basis when there's a noteworthy case, not every case, when there's a noteworthy case, are from Ankur on behalf of the ICA. He's the editor of the weekly case digests. And, as Nat mentioned, this is a means of communicating directly with panelists, because panelists are our subscribers. They're our readership. Same with complaints lawyers. And so this is a way of communicating directly with them, another way of communicating directly with them, in addition to what we're currently doing.
Yeah, I would think that's important, because, as I said, I think my biggest concern with the UDRP is that, there's oftentimes you'll see panelists who make decisions that are questionable, and I think as a domainer, domain investor myself, and I think I speak for a lot of people in the community, we're often concerned with the fact that by default, most of these panelists are lawyers, and, who are generally the biggest clients of lawyers, where the most money is coming from. It's from the trademark holders, right? So, by default, with no, I don't know if there's any bias there or anything like that, intentional at least, but by default, most of the lawyers available for these panels tend to be, lawyers of representing the complainants more than the respondents, and I think that's, perception wise, is not, well, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but so the fact that you're pushing out information, at least we know that the ones who do want to be fair, they can see things, decisions that maybe are a little bit more fair, and the reasons why certain decisions were made in a certain way, because, as I said, like, the process itself, I think, isn't really the issue. It's oftentimes how it's applied. I don't know if you guys want to actually say yourself that there's some panelists that are less.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's only so much you could do with education and explanation and advocacy to panelists, right? We can make a lot of progress by explaining to borderline panelists, or perhaps even poor panelists, how to improve their decision-making approach to UDRP. But at the end of the day, who are the panelists is the other big question, right? How do you become a panelist? Like, if you're a dyed in the woods, that's a good Dyed in the wool. Trademark maximalist, as Matt often puts it, who wants to increase his trademark rights as much as possible, and doesn't treat domain investing as legitimate. Period. And you're a panelist. We could send them email digests all day long. It's not going to make a difference, right? We need to have some way of making the panel rosters fair. Respondent lawyers have tried to get on, haven't been successful getting on. We just, Gerald Levine, who's not quote unquote a respondent lawyer, he's a UDRP scholar, happens to take on response citations on behalf of GoDaddy's name findings. Does an excellent job in that regard, and wrote the book on UDRP disputes. The treaties on the subject. He's become a panelist recently, and Nat noted that can have a significant difference. Nat?
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues with the UDRP is just, if you mentioned that there's these 3 criteria, the problem is that the whole thing is really so subjective. There's no, if you show up and say, I'm a domain investor and I've been in this business and this is my business for 10, 15 years, and this is a dictionaryword.com, none of that necessarily protects you. You can say all that can be true, and you can still lose a dispute. And the 3 tests, the first test is it confusingly similar, and pretty much anything qualifies for that. Yeah. The second test is, do you have a legitimate interest? And most panelists say that domain investing by itself, doesn't give you a legitimate interest. And the third test is, are you acting in bad faith? Did you register and use it in bad faith? And by the way, anything you want to say is bad faith can be bad faith, panelists. Here's a few things that are bad faith, but this is not an exclusive list. And anything that you think is bad faith, you can say is bad faith. So that's why you get decisions where we, some of the things that we've been, trying to work on is, asking a price that a panelist thinks is too high isn't really bad faith. Or maybe like as a broker doing outreach to various potential purchasers, and one of them happens to have a trademark, that's not, bad faith. Or, just even being in this business, buying a domain name at an auction, and there's a few people out there who are using it, and one of them wants it. The fact that they're using it already doesn't necessarily mean that you targeted them when you bought it at this auction. Yep. But panelists on all these cases, panelists are saying these are examples of bad faith and taking it away from domain owners. So it's such a squishy policy, and there's no real safe way as a domain investor to go into a dispute confident that you're going to prevail. So it's a very, that's part of the problems with the way the UDRP is written. Because I think it was written before domain investing was really a business. Yeah. They're like, there's trademarks and there's cyber squatters, and there's no real gray area. And they wrote it as if there was no gray area. But domain investors are right solidly in that gray area. It does a really poor job of trying to differentiate between good behavior and bad behavior among domain investors.
Yeah, and I guess the danger of trying to fight for maybe the next round of changes, clarifying those things, is that the danger is that it's clarified in the wrong direction, I guess, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because I mean, you'd think that common sense would often prevail, but everybody's common sense is relative, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some decisions that are, I'm guessing most decisions you would probably agree with, right? It's just that it's the extreme ones in either ways, usually, against the domain investor type of thing, that is just ridiculous. Like how sometimes a generic word that could be used in multiple ways could be taken away, as long as they're not infringing on the actual specific mark, like, they're not advertising for that company. It just doesn't make any sense to me, but it happens, right? So I don't know, but anyhow, we are coming close to the end here. Zach, you said you need to excuse yourself a couple minutes.
I'm just gonna go freshen up and be back at 2.
You're already very pretty, but we'll let you get prettier. It's all good. What I'll do is I'll let Nat and Kamila kind of just wrap things up and just invite people to come join the ICA. Let them know what to do, and we'll see you in a few minutes, Zach. Thank you again for this part one.
Zach, thank you.
Thank you, Kamila, and thank you, Nat, and thanks everyone for listening to this. I'll be back with you shortly.
Sounds good.
See you soon, Zach. Kamila, you want to take it away?
Sure. Zach left now, but I mean, he does such an amazing job for us, and we are really, really, really lucky to have Zach working on our behalf. So I know he's not here anymore, but you guys, if you're staying on, you'll get to listen to Zach a little bit more in the next panel. So what else can we say? Well, join the ICA if you're not a member yet. I believe it is important that everybody, if they can, becomes a member in the ICA and learns about what we do. The memberships, like I said, we've made it really, really easy and really accessible for everybody to join. $25 a month. $300 a year is the lowest membership level for individuals. For companies, the corporate membership start at $1,000 a year. That's the bronze level membership, and they go up, like I said, all the way up to platinum memberships.
So Kamila, let me just jump in for a second and say that we sort of let people self-assign what their right level is when they join, and some people say 1% of their revenues is like the right level to contribute. So it's, you sort of look at yourself, look at other people in the industry, and say, like, what just seems like a reasonable contribution to me. So I think the $25 level was mainly for newbies, part-timers, just try to get them, let them get in, experience the ICA, see what we do, and then as you grow in your business and as you grow, hopefully you'll increase your support to some of the higher levels, and then the corporate where you're as a membership as a company rather than just as an individual, that starts at the $1,000 level and goes up as well.
Exactly, and we certainly have members who have joined at the lower level and then increased their support, over their time with the ICA. Like as Nat said, the lowest level was introduced to just allow the people who are just starting off in the industry to join the ICA. So yes, join the ICA. We try to make it as worthwhile for you as possible, aside from the fact that you are aiding the organization that works on behalf of all the domain name owners, that being the main benefit. But we do provide other benefits, such as those monthly calls, and the meetups the meetup that we're organizing this year, and perhaps we'll organize in the future, and other benefits. We do place your name on our website, and we allow, we give you a network to this incredible group of domain name investors who are our members. So yes, join the ICA. I'll provide information in the chat window. Yeah. If you have any questions for us, let us know if there's anything else that we can tell you about.
Yeah, I want to say also, if you're just brand new, just starting out, and maybe not in the position, I don't know, where some corners of the world, maybe the membership levels might be a bit much, you can also just help them by following them on Twitter. And when they announce something important about a policy thing, retweet. I mean, these things, absolutely, the support we show is important. It doesn't necessarily have to be financial. Just by coming here and watching this panel today, this first one and the next one, just by more domain investors being aware of, first of all, of our rights, but also of what not to do, right? Because the more we don't infringe on things, the more that, the ICA can go in and say, well, they can fight for more. And then the trademark owners can't come back and saying, well, they're, domain investors doing this and that and that. But if we're not infringing on the real infractions, by being aware and informing ourselves, by coming to panels like this and watching a lot of the other resources out there, there's a lot of great, IP and domain specialists who share so much information around the web for free. Get that information, make sure you're not infringing on trademarks, and that so when you are accused of something wrongly, there's a stronger voice for us, that can say, well, look, it's not the case, because you know what you're doing. I know it frustrates me to see domain investors who do break the rules, and it frustrates me significantly more when trademark owners come and take a claim or try to take a claim on a domain that really should not belong to them, that is generic in nature, or that isn't infringing on a trademark. And so it's important to know these things. So definitely join the ICA. If you have the means, join the ICA. I've joined the ICA. Everybody who's a serious domain investor should join the ICA. But as I said, if you're not, just by informing yourselves of the issues, I know it's tedious and boring, and there's a lot of acronyms that you have to go through when you read through a lot of these documents, but it's important. If you want to invest in this industry, you have to be aware of the rules, and the trademark rules, they're important, right? You can't infringe on them, and similarly, you also need to know when you should fight back, because I've helped a couple of fellow domainers who have received letters from some law firms saying, oh, we think you should return the domain, and I looked at it, and I said, well, see an attorney, but some of them are in corners of the world where it wasn't an option. They couldn't afford that, and so I helped them through it, and I looked at it, and the claims that were made by the lawyer in question was ridiculous, and I helped them and went all the way up, and many emails later got the company to send the owner of the domain an apology and saying, yes, you can keep the domain, no problem. But that's the thing, is that I was able to do that because I got information from the ICA, from Zach, from John, from Stevan, from all the other IP lawyers out there who are on our side. And it's, inform yourselves. That's the best thing you can do, is, learn this stuff. It's actually really interesting once you start to know it. It's the next panel really excites me, just as like this one here today. But yeah, so anyways, any more closing remarks, or?
A big thank you. I'm really glad you're so excited about policy. Most people
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's exciting. It is definitely refreshing. Good to see that you are excited about domain law and policy. And yeah, while it might be tedious, we have Zach to do the heavy lifting, and the rest of us can just listen to him, and he makes it a lot more accessible and easy to understand. So thank you everybody for listening to us, for the questions. Arif, thank you again for the platform, allowing us to speak. Visit our website, either ica.domains or internetcommerce.org. And to our members who are here, thank you for supporting us, and hopefully we'll see some of you in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and if not, soon, maybe sometime next year. For me.
So we certainly hope so.
Yeah, not far, just across the border, but yeah, it's going to be a challenge.
Makes it a little bit more challenging. We certainly understand, but yeah.
Well, thanks again, Kamila and Nat. I want to thank you for being here, but as I said, actually many times throughout this week, thank you for doing what you do. Really, honestly, it's again, it might not seem, well, for me, it's sexy, but it might not seem sexy policy, for most people, but it's important. It really is important. Too many people in this industry take what you guys do for granted. And what many people don't realize is that you're sending Zach to these meetings, and he's the only person there representing our interest, right? If he wasn't there, like, what would happen? It's just,
right.
It's yeah. So glad you're there. Thank you for everything. Thank you for today.
And thanks, Arif. Thanks very much for having us on.
My pleasure. Take care.
Take care, everyone.
You guys, yeah. I'll switch you over to the other side.
Perfect.
There we go. And that as well. And we have Zach is back, and I just saw John and Stevan. I'll pull them up. I'll just take 1 minute to say again, thanks for those watching. Thanks for those listening in on Clubhouse. Thanks for those watching live on YouTube. Those of you who want to rewatch all these sessions this week can go to live.domainerweek.com. It goes to, where are we here? Here we go. I'm just adding the guys at hand. It goes to the YouTube channel, where you can refresh the page while there's a session, and the live stream will show up. Otherwise, you can watch the old ones. I would suggest you rewatch today's probably a couple of times, because there's going to be a lot to learn from here today. We had a great panel, and we're going to have what I call the legal dream team panel. There are actually a lot of lawyers in this industry who do a lot of work for us. A lot of information they put out for free. It just so happens that of randomly, I don't want to say anything against other lawyers or like that, because I know there's a lot of people out there, and I want to reach out to more over the months ahead as I do more of these. So those of you out there, please do get in touch with me. I would like to promote all of you. However, these three individuals today, they just happened to be around when I was learning about domains. Zach through the ICA, through other podcasts. Stevan has come on regularly on the Domain Social and graced us with an incredible wealth of legal insight and information that I'm eternally grateful for, Stevan, for you coming on and sharing that stuff. It's been invaluable to myself and to the community. And John Berryhill, I there's such a legend. The stuff that he shares also on podcasts on Name Pros. On Name Pros, he is the #1 resource in that community by far. There's a point when every day I was putting out lists of auctions and closeouts, hundreds of domains every single day, putting hours into it, and it's a fraction of what he put into it in terms of legal advice and knowledge and information. So as they say in court, please rise. I'm not rising because you're judges. I'm rising because I'm so honored and privileged to be here today. You guys could not understand how excited I am today. Before I thought I was excited about policy. You guys are the masters in this, and you've shared so much information. I'm gonna stop because I could just go on until the end of this panel, and I won't. But I'm so grateful for the three of you being here today. I'm so grateful for all the work you do in support of domain investors, and and all the information you provide to all of us. And honestly, anybody who does not know who these three individuals are just bonkers, because you're doing domaining wrong. You need to know this stuff, and they're giving that information, valuable information, for free out of the goodness of their hearts. So thank you guys.
Well, we usually have a rule when we get together that we talk about who doesn't show up. But I do want to mention we are not the only lawyers who do this in the world. And very prominent lawyer Paul Keating in this area just recently underwent some surgery, and our thoughts are with him. And of course, our thoughts are not with Jason Schaefer or Ari Goldberger or Brett Lewis or a roster of other people that will say nasty things about if you ask.
Not too nasty. I don't want the Domain Podcast to be dragged in court. So, gentlemen, welcome. I'm starting to lose my voice after this whole week, which is probably a good thing on this panel, because I've been forewarned that once we get started, there's a chance that you guys will never stop. Yeah, we are live. We're live on Clubhouse and YouTube and here, as well as there'll be people rewatching afterwards. Day 1 and day 2 of this this week are already over 300 views on YouTube. So we're live and ready to go. So how about we just start with, I'll get you guys to introduce yourselves a bit, how you got into the domain industry. Well, I guess you're into law and then the domain industry, and then we'll jump right into all kinds of crazy UDRP questions and legal advice and whatever it is. So I don't know who'd like to start first, but go for it.
Okay, Steve Lieberman, Greenberg and Lieberman, and also Escrow Domains. My client Warren Weitzman got me into actually domaining, although I had a few domain names a bit before that. And then I went to the 2001 conference for Eloqua and sort of never looked back.
Okay.
I'll jump in. I got started in domain name law in 1999. You could hear the whole story about it on Alvin's podcast, Kickstart e-commerce. I told the whole story, but basically I couldn't get a job doing IP work because I didn't have the science background that guys like John and Steven had. So I ended up doing personal injury, but luckily I found the domain name case, and that got me started 21 years ago.
That leaves you, John. How did you get into the world of domains on the legal side? Oh, you're on mute right now.
We have to learn to read lips.
And who's better to learn on than mine? Huh? I use that line a lot. Anyway, I started out actually studying electrical engineering. My doctorate is in electrical engineering, and I always liked the verbal side of things, explaining things, describing things. And so actually after finishing up and having a disappointing start on an engineering career, I fell into the company of lawyers in the 1990s and became a patent agent with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, where you can practice without being a lawyer, and went to law school at night, and ultimately just sort of fell into what was a natural fit with the explosion of the internet and my particular background and my interest in IP.
Now you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted now. Guilty. Yeah. So I mean, we're here today to talk about some fundamentals in the in the domain world when it comes to legal issues. I think the most prominent 4 letters that most people hear in those regards are UDRP, which is stands for, oh my gosh, Universal Dispute Resolution. What's the last?
Uniform Dispute Resolution
Dirty,
Policy.
rapacious prostitutes.
And there we go. Yeah. So I guess maybe we'll take a couple minutes and just start. I'll ask you guys. Everyone hears, oh, there's the 3 parts of the UDRP, and some people aren't familiar with it. Maybe just give a little brief description of what it is and what its intent was. Again, I'm just going to throw it out to you guys. You guys can just jump in. I don't want to be charged of showing favoritism here in this court.
You said the word charge. Steven Lieberman, that means you. Go ahead.
No. That's okay. Feel free, Zach. Okay. I mean, UDRP is a policy that was set up under ICANN and Internet Corporation Sign Names and Numbers. There's a 3-part test, but the is it exactly the same? Is it confused? Spacing. See, there's my mouth trying to work. Thanks, John. But one of the nice things about the UDRP is that it allows you to have a dispute in arbitration that has no effect on anything other than the domain name, that you're not going to get damages in that case or anything of that sort. And there's lots of politics around it.
That's an interesting point, is that, for all the criticism of the UDRP that we hear and that we make ourselves, this is a point that Ari Goldberger often raises and raised historically, is that, if there wasn't the UDRP, first of all, John would still be an engineer. I'd be doing broken legs and dog bites, but if there wasn't a UDRP, do you think that would mean that trademark owners would be going to court and suing much more often because they don't have this outlet of the UDRP? And would that mean that domain investors are being sued and suffering damages? And would that have transformed the whole industry because people would have stayed clear of domain names to some degree?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there would be plenty more lawsuits, but the majority of the clients look at the world as, is this one worth litigating? And a lawsuit's obviously a lot more expensive than a UDRP. So a lot of the times domainers probably would not have litigated the issue. But then the other hand, the large corporations also wouldn't have done as many filings, because even if it costs $15,000 or something of that sort with nobody on the other side, they're still not going to file as many as, filing a UDRP, which is 1/3 of the price or less.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of lazy lawyering that goes on where, I am an associate in some big law firm, and it's low hanging fruit to just sort of take your client's trademarks and do searches for domains and send these alerts to your clients, oh, here you have a problem you didn't know you had, and we'll fix it, for a low fee or something like that. There's a lot of, there's a lot of these things like, when some company is going after the, 1,000th iteration of some typo domain that's on PPC that gets 4 clicks a month, it's hard to understand sometimes the practical mentality that drives it. Although, when one of the things in litigation, I've had actually an extremely busy month, and I do have a new piece of litigation that I've walked into. But one of the things about litigation that you don't find in the UDRP is, practically every, most, I'll say the vast majority, and you can correct me if my feeling's wrong, guys, but the vast majority of domain lawsuits eventually settle. And obviously, the terms on which they settle are not necessarily public. People sometimes speculate, but it's easier to have that discussion in parallel on a piece of civil litigation about, what does your client want? Where can we, both serve our clients best to get them what they want, at some level that they'll tolerate mutually. And whereas I found that I don't think I've ever, nope, out of one, I've had like 300 UDRP cases or something. And I think there was one time that I actually negotiated a monetary settlement with the other side. It was actually a very prominent lawyer who is also a UDRP panelist, and we both, argued at each other, pretty fiercely and pretty strongly, and we were so invested in the process that we both wanted to know, well, who's going to win, right? Even though our clients, they'll settle on these terms, whatever. Part of the settlement was, we're going to let the UDRP go to a decision.
No way. Wow.
Just to see who won, but here are the terms on which we're resolving the dispute. And I was very disappointed. It was one of the decisions that I actually lost, but I was happy to lose it because it was settled to my client's satisfaction before the decision came out. But on that point, the only thing you can do sometimes, and with increasing frequency with the UDRP, is I have what I call a surrender Dorothy letter. I very rarely use it. I think Zach heard of it before. In The Wizard of Oz, when the Wicked Witch shows up and writes "Surrender Dorothy" in the sky, right? It's this letter basically ripping into them, telling them why they're not going to win the UDRP, what we're going to do to them, what we're going to do to them after the UDRP, and why don't you hang it up?
And that you're going to show that letter in the response, which is the beautiful part of it, right? Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, prior to a UDRP, I do the C&D answer. I say, and we demand you attach this letter to any complaint you file, right, as an exhibit. And if you don't, we're all going to know why you didn't, because it shows your state of mind. But anyway, I have had more success actually with dissuading. It was starting to feel like this year. It's like, well, gosh, I'm hardly getting any UDRP decisions because, in several instances, we just basically talk some sense into the other side. But in any event, the settlement dynamic in a UDRP, Zach and Steve, I'm monopolizing your time here, of course. Compare between, litigation and the UDRP. People have the feeling with the UDRP, they paid their money, it's 20 days, they're going to get their decision, it's going to be over, and there's no sort of back and forth trading favors during the process. Does that make it hard to settle?
Well, let me ask you, like, one of the suggestions that constantly comes up over the years, as you know, about the UDRP, is whether there should be like
a mediation, a formal mediation interspersed somewhere into the process, like what they do with .uk domain names. And there's pros and cons to this, but what do you think? Should there be a formal mediation, or is there no reason to have formal mediation because the parties are always able to call each other up and try to resolve it? And it rarely happens anyhow because they paid their money, they bought their ticket, they're taking their chances.
Yeah, I think there's no reason for it to have it because people can always talk anyway. And often the opposing attorney has no clue as to why they should settle. They think that they're right. I mean, we had recently had a case where we had a guy who not filed 1 or 2, but 3 UDRPs. He just kept refiling because he thought the panelists were wrong. We responded to
that was unbelievable. That was the record.
Yeah.
The guy filed 3 times, Steven?
3 times.
RDNH every time, or was it just 2 out of the 3 times?
We only got RDNH twice.
And you didn't even respond the 3rd time. You just let him do it?
Didn't even bother. You know, and then the guy turned around and started contacting my client's niece and trying to get her to convince her aunt to transfer the domain. I mean, he just kept going and going and going and going.
John, did you have anything to tell that guy on Twitter by any chance?
Oh no.
I actually got to use Steven's experience with the nuttiest man on earth, and I mean, but he's a type. There are a lot of them. You know, there are those guys that threaten your client over a domain name, and then you go tell them to go pound sand, and they come back like 4 years later, and they're like, "We want your domain name." It's like, did you not hear me the last time? Go away. But I actually got to use that because some of with the new ICANN Whois rule, and I think that there are quite a few UDRP filings now that are really not even driven by brand protection. These are people who there's a plan B UDRP. We tried to purchase the domain name, and we didn't like the price, so we filed a UDRP to see if they'll show up or can competently defend themselves.
Yeah.
There's now a what I'm getting the sense of, because I've seen a bunch of these this year, is UDRP gets filed. It's a really frivolous UDRP, and it's not really well written, and it obviously doesn't tag all 3 bases. And the first time anybody hears from me is once I've engaged a client. Typically, I ask for the 4-day extension under Rule 5B just to make sure that we got room. And so the first correspondence the other side will get in a UDRP where I'm representing somebody is, appearance of counsel, please direct all further communication and extend the thing by 4 days under Rule 5B. And in a couple of instances, I've then heard from the attorney, where one of them was, "Oh, we're glad we finally have someone to talk to. We've been trying to contact the registry of the domain name for a long time, and they're actually filing the UDRP just to get the registrant information in the initial thing, as a mechanism." I had another one where it was like, "Oh well, they actually tried to withdraw this pending case. They've tried to withdraw the complaint after they found out who it was and why we have it, and the thing is, this is like, I wanted to talk to you about buying a car, so I broke into your garage at night and started jimmying the lock, and you came out, "Oh, thank God you're here. We can talk about trying to buy your car." But this is the thing that's happening. So in my brief, the complainant wanted to withdraw, and we said, "No, we want this to go to a decision because we want you to condemn what's going on here, even though they want to pull the complaint." And I said, because here's what's going on. There's some crazy guy who files it in one place and then goes to 2 other places. And, so Steve's experience was actually very useful in what may be a forthcoming decision.
I've seen people also file UDRPs in order to lock in jurisdiction. Because you only have 2 choices: the place of the registrar or the place of the registrant. and they, said, we can't serve this person, and so we're gonna file the UDRP and they're gonna respond, and then that way we don't really care what we file. And I've seen people file absolutely horrible UDRPs with just conclusions, and not expecting to win, solely doing it so they can then move forward into an ACPA case.
So this is another question I have for you guys. Like, there's the trademark bar that, the names that we're familiar with of these complaint lawyers that are also active in INTA and ICANN, and there happen to be panelists. But are those the people that are bringing the bad complaints or not? My sense is that, to a large degree, and there's exceptions to this, absolutely, but my sense, I tend to see that it's the complainant lawyer who's brought his first complaint or her first or second complaint that isn't really familiar with this, that isn't trying to pull a fast one per se. It's just they're idiots or they just don't know. And those are the people that are bringing these RD&H complaints by and large, not completely, but by and large. Is that your experience as well?
I would say that it's a lot of it. Yes, that would be correct. But a lot of in-house counsel who have never filed a UDRP, and or a lot of pro se people filing. And I mean, we got one where the guy completely ignored the rules. He wrote a paper letter. And when they wouldn't accept it via paper, he scanned in the paper letter written by hand. He just said, "This is mine, send it to me."
Well, I want to hear what John has to say on this, but we should circle back to talk about the days when we had to actually file these things in paper, because there's some stories there back in the day. Yeah, but John, what's your sense about the complainants' counsels? That typically bring these lousy complaints? Who are they?
I blame cheap CLE. All right. Now, look, I'm the first one to
cheap CLE, continuing legal education. Cheap CLE.
Right. Yeah. Lawyers in the United States and many other jurisdictions have a requirement to take certified courses for continuing legal education in a variety of topics. And there's a CLE industry out there. I mean, you can go to really good ones like there's the New York Intellectual Property Law Association will put on a 3-day thing, and you'll get it's like Clockwork Orange. You'll sit there and absorb law for 3 days. But I'm I as someone who needs like 15 hours before the end of the month. There's also these really cheap courses that you can find online, and they're video things, and you have to watch the video, and like at random times a word pops up on the screen, and you have to write down the words so at the end to prove you actually watched the video, because we can trust lawyers to keep their word. But I think people go to a CLE panel or a seminar or something where the speaker is one of the people we know.
Yeah.
And they are somehow given the impression. I remember in the dying days of what's called the Octagen Doctrine, in the dying days of this experiment in UDRP jurisprudence that involved retroactive bad faith or renewal of faith each time your credit card was automatically charged or something like that. It was pretty well recognized among UDRP panelists that this dog is dead. This dog will not hunt. It is over. There's no life in this. If someone registers a domain name and there's no trademark to cyber squat against, they are not a cyber squatter. Okay, it's that simple. They didn't do anything wrong because someone stupidly chose as their brand a domain that was already registered without figuring out what they could do yet. Right? Okay. So even recognizing that this was dead, and I was at the WIPO used to put on an annual UDRP seminar that gave me my 12 credits in CLE. I need it every year. And a very, a prominent panelist and a guy that we all respect and like, said, but who knows, try, maybe you'll have a unique circumstance where a creative argument will win the day or something like that, because you never want to categorically foreclose on any legal possibility. So it is a lot of first time complainants and it's traps for the unwary. I mean, it's like, I feel bad sometimes because this is, something we all do multiple times a year. We can practically, deal with UDRPs in our sleep. We know every rule and every piece of juice you can squeeze out of every rule. But I get the feeling it's like some virus going around that someone is causing these lawyers to believe, oh, you fill out a form, you tell them you have a trademark and you get a domain name. They're not like just waking up one morning and thinking, I want to do this, right? They are finding the forms and paying the fees and stuff like that.
No, they caught an ad for the UDRP at some point along the line at, CLE or somewhere, at some monthly newsletter from their bar or something. They heard about the UDRP. Then they see that, there's one that I could fill out a form. It's like an online form, right? It's not like a real legal case of pleadings and stuff. It's an online form. And then I find one that only charges me $400 to get it started, right? So this is almost like, filling out a form for a driver's license at the DMV. That's how simple it is. So I'm a senior partner. I don't need to do with it. The guy who just finished law school, who started 3 weeks ago, he's going to do it for our firm. I can trust him with that because it's not really law. It's not a real case, right? It's just this thing you fill out a form and pay a fee. So I'm going to have them do it. And then they send it off to, the provider, and they get a response back from the likes of a Lieberman or a Berryhill, and their jaw drops to the ground. They say, oh my effing Lord, look what I ran into. And that's at that point, they like either double down or they want to get out or they declare defeat.
It's better when you can then, get them into the ACPA and then ask for damages on reverse domain name hijacking. Because then you really have fun, because then all of a sudden the original attorney, the first year associate, seems to get booted out and they get someone else who actually has little more of a clue as to what they're doing.
Hey, what about those pre-electronic filing years? Listen, I know that this is a little arcane for the general public, but there were some funny stories about back in the day when you had to file a UDRP response by fax and by courier and stuff like that. I remember, I think John had some stories where he tried to beat the deadline in Geneva by 1 minute and stuff like that.
Yeah, the hard copy thing was fascinating. The best hard copy filing story is Ari Goldberg, because not only is the response due on the deadline, but if you're selecting a 3-member panel, your payment for the panel is due at the same time, and the ADR forum, or whatever they call themselves these days to avoid being sued, they had a credit card authorization form, and that would be the last thing you'd stick on this, and the one thing on client intake, when you get a UDRP complaint that's not a good UDRP complaint, it's a couple of paragraphs, 3 pages long, and 2 exhibits, right? Here's our trademark, here's their webpage, here's my saying that they're cyber swappers. And you're trying to explain to somebody who's never seen a UDRP proceeding. Well, let me explain to you, the response is going to be 10 pages long. It's going to have 70 pages of exhibits, because you may not like this, but I just concluded a case on the acronym GNP, and
congratulations on that. Excellent
Thank you.
Win. That was great.
You can't just say, oh, well, it's a common 3-letter acronym, right? You have to, here's what happens when you type it into a Google search. Here are the first 100 results. Here are 3 dictionary definitions. Here are people, using it like this, because you never know really how much it's going to be enough. You don't know what language your panelist is going to speak. You don't know what their background is going to be, at least in a single member panel proceeding. But anyway, you had to file these things, huge stack of papers you'd put into the fax machine, and it'd be chunking away, and you're watching the clock or whatever, getting reports from your assistant. And that was anyway. my assistant Kristen used to have this nailed.
I remember her. Yes,
she could do everything. So anyway, the last form when you filed a response to the National Arbitration Forum was the credit card authorization form. And Ari Goldberger filed a UDRP, and the credit card authorization form, the last piece of paper, got jammed and the fax transmission ended. And so he didn't get a 3-member panel. And it was one of those things. It's sort of like, when Paul Keating has a fun case and he wants to complain to everybody about opposing counsel for weeks at a time. Ari Goldberger for like a month. I mean, you get the internet butthurt form. Ari Goldberger had filled that out in triplicate over the way, and particularly at the ADR forum, which takes very they adopt their interpretation of the rule, and they believe that is what the rule is. Let's just leave it there.
I used to work in Geneva for a little while, so I had a few friends in Geneva. So I found myself a couple of times FTPing files up to a friend of mine so that he could print it out and literally drive it over. And he said he was like wandering the halls trying to find the right place to hand it in.
Yeah, I just, thinking back in it, I just remember these responses that were, sometimes hundreds of pages long with exhibits that I would have it lined up on the floor of my office, like in a row, exhibit A, exhibit B, exhibit C. And then I'd have a friend come and we'd slip blue pages in between the exhibits. And then we'd have to go to Business Depot and get it Surlocks bound. And then we'd have to pay like $150 to have it FedEx to Geneva. And we were sweating that it would arrive in time by, the due date. It was a whole big hassle back in the day.
It's a lot easier now, and there's no question about it.
It's funny, hey? It's like it's disputes about domains, yet you couldn't use electronic means of communicating that stuff. That's weird. When will that change?
I don't know exactly when it changed, but it's an interesting thought, Arif, because when the UDRP came out, it was really maybe not, if not the first, one of the first pioneers of online dispute resolution, right? I mean, when I first got my first UDRP to respond to, I wasn't sure if this was like some kind of a joke, that you could actually have a dispute settled by somebody in Minneapolis or someone in Geneva. Are these guys seriously going to get involved in this case about a domain name? I didn't know if this was real. And then, and you do written arguments and you send them by email. This was new frontier stuff. I think that's how I felt about it at the time.
Yeah, because what most people don't know is that the UDRP wasn't there at the beginning, right? When it wasn't there at the dawn of domains, it developed afterwards because of a need. I'm thinking, right?
Yeah, well, Network Solutions had a very mechanical trademark policy that it was recognized that it had its pluses and minuses, but at the end of the day, it was just very mechanical. If someone sent them a registered trademark, Network Solutions would turn to you and say, "Do you have a registered trademark?" And if you just could not show a registered trademark, the domain name was turned off. And that's when people discovered that in Tunisia you can get 24-hour trademark registration systems. So there was this big boom in that. And a lot of the procedure, when you say when did the rules change,
You got muted, incoming thing. You're on mute, John.
He's making a few bucks during this Zoom call.
Yeah. Chargeable
every 6 minutes.
Yeah. No, he's back. Oh, I think you're back. No, you're not. We lost your audio, John.
John,
All
say
right,
something.
that's the one. I think it's the only way to get him speechless. But you know what? I'm so happy he's not ever speechless. He's you can't. You maybe
Yeah.
reconnect. Try to use that link again and reconnect maybe, and we'll.
One of the funniest John Berryhill story I ever heard, I wish I was there to experience it myself, is that he was invited as a guest to speak at a domain name conference in Australia. And so he was given the start date of the conference. And so he booked this flight and he got there at the right time, he thought, to start the conference. But he didn't calculate the difference between Australian time and Philadelphia time. So he showed up a day late.
Oh yeah. I'm scheduling this week. I try to put Counsel Australia, but I forget to put like the +1 day or whatever it is. Yeah, but yeah, as long as he submits those UDRPs on time, I think that's what matters more than anything else.
Even if you submit them a little late, they come back to usually you can say, a day or so, what's the difference? Yeah, I've submitted them a day late and then they've been like, okay, it's fine. And
Okay.
read it and accepted it.
Who's back?
Come on, sometimes we even file, if you file late in court, it's 1 day. Okay, what's the difference?
There we go.
Nobody's had a negative. John, can you hear us?
Yes. Were you good when I was gone?
Hell
John,
no.
I was using that time to tell the story about how you showed up in Australia a day late for the conference.
Yeah, but one time in New Zealand, I was able to file a UDRP response in the past in Minneapolis, right? Because I got it sent from Wellington, New Zealand, the day after it was due, back before the deadline when it was due. I felt like Doc Brown.
Yeah, you need to be able to respond really quickly when you get it, so you can actually file it before it was actually filed.
Yeah.
Hey guys, let me ask you another question. A lot of domainers, and you see this on the boards and comments to blogs, they say, this RDNH is such a dastardly thing when a complainant brings an RDNH claim, puts the registrant to expense of hiring one of you guys, one of us, having to respond, stresses them out about losing their domain name. If you get an RDNH against a complainant, shouldn't there be costs payable by that complainant because they abused the policy, they brought the UDRP in bad faith?
Yeah, and just for those people watching on YouTube in the future, they're new. RDNH means reverse domain name hijacking. So basically, if if somebody's tried to take your domain name away and you've proven that that's wrong and you're okay, you can reverse domain name hijacking. Go ahead. Sorry.
We would have to change the UDRP rules to get that in. I think it's a great idea, but if you're willing to go and file that in court, then you can get damages. But yeah, it would be great if then there would actually be a risk of some sort. But I mean, traditionally UDRP is only about the domain name, nothing about money. And there's obviously advantages to that.
Right, so what you're referring to is there's been some cases like that. Cohen's brought a couple of them. I think John was counsel was with Harvey.org, where the respondent goes to court after UDRP to seek damages for reverse domain name hijacking. So what Steven's saying is there is recourse even without this rule, but you have to go to court and you seek statutory damages of $100,000 plus attorney's fees under the ACPA, which is the Anti-Cyber Consumer Protection Act, against a purported hijacker.
Right. Just most people don't want to go to court.
But John, what do you think of the cost issue with an RDNH?
Well, people are familiar with the blogs and the comments on some of the domain news sites. You will know that Zach is the center of an international conspiracy to prevent UDRP. Here's the deal. It would be great. It would be great if gold nickels came out my ass too. All right, I can't make either of those two things happen. And there's some practicalities of it, like can we get people to pay? And it's like, well, you can get people to pay the fee to file a complaint, because they pay that up front. You can get people to, pay for additional panel fees because that's something they want. But, WIPO is an international treaty organization with diplomatic immunity, which was actually instituted to administer certain patent and trademark treaty mechanisms. This is kind of a tack onto them, but they don't, it's not like they're going to come tow your car away if you don't pay. So if the UDRP panel says, oh, they should pay, how practically, is WIPO going to run around the planet, or even, any of the private providers, chasing after people for, little bits of money. So there's that. Now one answer to that is to say, well, they have to post a bond, and when you do a court proceeding, of this type, generally very quick summary decision, you have to post some sort of a bond. And I guess that would be one way to do it, but then as soon as you start talking about that, then the more numerous members of the Trademark Enforcement Services constituency will, say, well, fine, we'll make it attorney's fees on both sides. So now you're looking at losing the domain name, and I know people say, well, but if they win, they get the domain name, right? Yeah, which is true, but they still had to spend money to get something, and got a decision. So there's just no way you can't make the water run up, run backwards at ICANN, and you're never going to get WIPO, which has its quirks, but it is kind of a rogues gallery of UDRP providers to some extent. You're not gonna get any UDRP provider buy-in, and I just don't practically see how that would happen. But yeah, would it be great? Yeah, and then people throwing around the idea of, well, could you have some kind of insurance, for domain names? But that has a lot of problems as well. In terms of self-selection of risk and other factors.
Well, there are insurance policies that include name protection, and we've actually had clients use it for not for UDRPs, but for federal cases that the insurance company paid for all the litigation. So it is out there. I think you have to pay a bit more for it, and if you actually want it for prosecution, you got to pay way more for it. But
the premium is 50 cents a week.
Something like that. Frankly, if you're talking,
I'll do late night commercials for you.
Oh no!
John Berryhill for National Domain Insurance.
You'd actually be really good at that. Actually, if we're going to make a change to the UDRP, I just like stare decisis, re that people have to follow precedent of some sort instead of having essentially random decisions by different panelists, and maybe some sort of appeal process that's within the UDRP instead of going directly to court.
So,
that would be interesting.
Would you like to see a appeals process? There's pros and cons to it. I'm back and forth on the issue. I probably end up against it at the end of the day. But what are your thoughts on whether there should be an appeal of the UDRP it's still an arbitration appeal, not going to court?
How do you put this bluntly? There's some really good arbitrators out there, and some aren't quite as good. And what we've noticed is that when you have three panelists, you get a better decision almost every single time. And if somebody says, I want to stay with the single panelist initially, then they should be able to appeal to either 3 or maybe even 5 panelists if they want to pay for it. And that only, I would say, only when it's on appeal would that decision have stare decisis. Because, we all know there's some really bad UDRP decisions, and the majority of them come from single panelists where they don't have other panelists to bounce their ideas off of.
So I always thought the panelists did their analysis separately. They communicate with each other, or if there's three.
Yeah, they confer, and that's where, you know, I mean, the often unrecognized reality of the UDRP is that, you know, most of them, I mean, you can look at the list of pending cases at WIPO, and right now, out of like the most recent 50 pending cases, there are probably, you know, 2 of them where your eyebrow goes, oh, I wonder what's going on in that one. Whereas most of them are, you know, transfer. And so I think some UDRP panelists can get into a mindset of, you know, oh, it's another one. Oh, it's another one. But if you get 3 people, you know, putting their heads together, it does, like if you know, ask a question, if this was just Zach by himself and you ask him questions, you get answers, you get Zach's answers, you know. But, you know, you have 3 people that have to actually justify among each other, you know, the reasoning for each finding in the decision. You do get a more quality decision because, you know, but I one of the funniest decisions I've ever seen was a 3-member panel decision, but it was a train wreck of inexperienced panel.
Well, yeah, so that's what I'm thinking too, is that, yeah, I agree that generally speaking, our advice to the client, I mean, the 3 of us, the domain name lords, is to go with the 3-member panel for these reasons. And if a 3-member panel on the appeal level was if an appeal panel was 3 members and they were appealing a 1-member panel, that would, you know, lead to probably a better decision generally. But where this falters for me is that, as you pointed out, some decisions that are atrocious were 3-member panel decisions and even unanimous. And so are those the people that are sitting on the appeal panel? Right? And they're you know, experienced panels too make some bad decisions, because it's very much a product of one's perspective and professional background. Like, you know, John's represented mainly respondents, Steven represented mainly respondents, I believe, in the UDRP, but sometimes complainants too, for both of you, for me as well. So, you know, we're able to see things from both perspectives, but some people typically only represent one party and they see everything from that perspective. So if they're a trademark lawyer, you know, what is the saying? For a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It's that kind of a situation.
Okay, well, I have you 3 guys here. I have some questions from people already submitted. I have probably some people who want to ask some there. What I want to do is actually just, like, you know, go over maybe ask you what you guys think most common mistakes and misconceptions from domain investors, and I'll start with a couple of them, and I'll let you guys take other stuff that you think are priorities. I think John could probably go until next Tuesday of the way he's corrected quite I'd say interestingly, colorfully sometimes some domainers' misconceptions, because you know, a lot of times domain investors just unfortunately don't take the time to inform themselves. So I'll just start by asking the question that people bounce around and kind of are never sure of is what date counts towards bad faith registration? Is it like the creation of the domain, the ownership date, the last renewal, or something completely arbitrary?
Yeah, it's an easy one. It's the date that, generally speaking, it's the date when the respondent registers the name, his or herself, or their company itself. Generally, that is the material date. It's not the creation date, unless in some circumstances you can show and argue, you know, that you've acquired the previous registrant, or that you can make an argument. But generally speaking, it's the registration date. Would you both agree with that?
Absolutely.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Generally
speaking. You hit me with, if you acquire the respondent, you know, or the guy had it as an individual, then he formed a one-person corporation and moved into that corporation, or husbands and wives. There have been a couple, you know, around the edges. There are transfers, not a transfer cases in the UDRP. But when you got the domain name, and on intake, I asked people, you know, there's two things I want to know. You know, when did you get the domain name, and why did you get the domain name?
Oh, yeah. That's important.
What'd you do with it?
Yeah. All right. So when you acquire it then, and then what else do we have here? Oh yes, this is one of my favorites. And Steven, you answered part of that in a previous social, but I think it's really important. First name plus last name.com. What's the story there? If I get johnberryhill.com or zachmuscovich.com or stevenlieberman.com, what is that allowed? Is it not allowed? What's the story there?
Go ahead, gentlemen. Okay, no one's going to answer. I'll answer. So John Smith is probably fine, generally speaking, because it's just it's a common name, and you could probably make the argument that that it's impossible to prove that you targeted a particular John Smith by registering such a common name. If someone registered Zach Muscovich, and I would need to prove that I have common law trademark rights in my name if I want to go after them. And I would have to show that I used my name in commerce as a brand, essentially, and that they registered it to target me because they were aware of me. And a name like Zach Muscovich is pretty obvious. It wasn't a fluke. Yeah. And then I'd have to show that, they registered it in bad faith and using bad faith to prevent me from getting it or to hustle me, etc. Where it gets more interesting is the cases that, it's a big, and I think John is active in some of these, maybe Steve as well. Like there's a business executive, like the CEO, where he's, a master of the universe. Like, I'm famous, I'm the CEO of like this company with, 15,000 employees in 32 states, and someone's registered my name. The name is something like Nicholas Summerfield or something. And so because he's never published a book, which is used in commerce, because he hasn't used his name as a brand, he just happens to say, he may have a tough time proving proving common law trademark rights. And also where it gets interesting is, names, even personal names, single names like Madonna and Armani, those have both been subject to UDRP disputes, very interesting ones.
You can add on from US law, there's the right of publicity and the right of privacy, and that's based on a state-by-state basis. So, I mean, you go to, I don't know, LA, and you register some actor's name, and they're going to have a much bigger hammer to stop someone than say, I don't know, go to Alabama and register the name where nobody's ever heard the name. And, multiple people can have, certainly when you're talking about first names, Allison.com. I don't know how many Allisons there are out in the world, but I'm sure there's at least half a phone book worth. So nobody can have the exclusive rights to that. I know someone has myexactname.com, but they're a Hasidic rapper out of New York City, and I have no claim against them whatsoever. So it's also going to be dependent upon what state and country you're in. I don't know the laws in Canada, but they might have something like that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And when Zach talks about, whether the name is used as a brand, if I'm at a restaurant in California and I say, oh, look over there, I see Steven Spielberg. All right, I'm referring to that person whose name is Steven Spielberg. If I say, hey, after dinner, let's go out and see a Steven Spielberg movie, all right, the name Steven Spielberg in that context is a brand of movie, all right? So, yeah, I've done a couple of celebrity cases where it's like you show, oh, it's, we're going to a Enrique Iglesias concert. It's not just some guy, Enrique Iglesias, that's going to come out and do, Desperado or whatever, but this is a brand of concert I'm going to, that kind of thing.
Okay, here's so overall, it's basically be careful, right? Because I know a lot of people they get first name last names, and sometimes it worries me seeing them do that. I guess it depends on how common it is, right?
It's also intent. I mean, we had a client that registered the name of a very famous I say he always calls it football player, but it's a soccer player. It depends on whether you're in Europe or not. And he set it up as a fan site. And so he actually he didn't have any advertising on it. He actually had a right to set up a fan site. And there's plenty of case law that says that you can do that. Whereas if he had put, PPC on it, where he had put advertising on it, he would have lost that right because he would have been making income off of that person's name.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here I've got another question that, well, I'll just start by saying the question itself I would probably summarize as being, do trademarks count across the dot? And here to bring in the longer question, where I got that sort of short one from is, so years ago, I got a cease and desist letter about a dot world name I have. It was parked at the time, and the ads were for the same business sector. Let's say that the generic domain I have is coffee.world, and there's a big brand company, there's a big brand called Coffee World. From my perspective, it's not me speaking, this is the person asked the question. From my perspective, or from his perspective, I'm not trampling on their trademark because my domain is coffee, just the SLD. If I own coffeeworld.anything, it would be obviously an infringement. And he goes, aside from the booking.com case, is there any, okay, well, I'm going to get to that afterwards, but it's basically, does spanning the dot make a difference or not?
Arif, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What do you think is the commercial impression of a third party when they see coffee.world? They know the difference between a first level and a second level domain name, so on the internet?
Yeah, I would think that they're just, the world is their audience and they're just selling coffee.
No. Some third party goes to a web page, coffee.world.
Yeah.
Do you think the commercial impression of that is any different than coffeeworld.com?
I would probably say yes, because I distinguish between the two, but I could see that maybe the argument can be made either way. Yeah,
I would guarantee you that the answer is the commercial impression is roughly the same. Okay. First level domain names.com, et cetera, are considered generics to a great degree, but not always, at least to the trademark office. Whereas at the same time, if you try and register a second level domain name and as a trademark, and it's one of these new GTLDs, you're going to find that they're going to take it in as the whole thing is the commercial impression, not just what is the second level domain name. So the answer to your question is, yeah, that would be infringing if that weren't such a generic term.
Okay. So
I'll throw it. Can I hear? I don't know where my microphone is actually. But
you're talking. People can hear you.
I'll throw a depends in here, and not just because I'm an old guy. But I mean, it's very easy when you look at something like wall.mart, right? If somebody got wal.mart, are you going to say, oh no, I sell drywall, and I mean, you're going to have to have a really good excuse, because we know what someone who gets wall.mart, or even if they had single letters k.mart, if that's even a brand anymore, those are the easy ones, and there is a spectrum of this, okay? Because there was an early case in about 2001, 2002 involving the domain name 6.net, and the trademark was 6net, all right? And they did, and yeah, tes.co. There have been a couple of them, So, but some of the unspoken factors, if we just talk about, well, here's what you need to prove the UDRP. So there are some unspoken factors that play into this, and relative fame of the mark, relative strength of the mark. Like you said, well, no, we're thinking of coffee and world, not coffee world. Which with certain combinations and certain trademarks, you might be able to make that argument, like where where it makes sense as a two-word phrase that really doesn't even have much to do with what they're selling. So
there can be, as always with these kinds of things, it's hard to lay down the general rule. But can you span the dot? Yeah, sure. There are lots of cases that do. And as Steve said, if you reproducing the words, it's probably gonna happen. Without some other compelling reason to say, in 6net, they did say it was confusingly similar, but the guy didn't register it because of that, right? Whereas we know what the guy who registers WAL.MART is thinking, right? I mean, you don't have to, remove your brain in order to do this.
Yeah, I think that's probably the greatest thing I've learned from the three of you over the last several years. Again, through the various formats I've absorbed information from you, is that the whole trademark thing. It's not black and white at all, right? There's so many shades of gray, so many ways things can be interpreted. That's why it's so fascinating to me, because it's like the more I get information from you guys, the more I understand and see where that line usually is. But even knowing where that line usually is, it's still a fuzzy line, right? Like you can have one domain, one panelist make one judgment with the best of intents, like really understanding it, and it could be different from another one with full knowledge and best of intents, which obviously that's not always the case. But sometimes I'm assuming that the wrong decisions are made with the best of intent, and they just don't see it. But sometimes it's just the interpretation of, not about the domain itself, but about maybe their perception on that business, right? Maybe they don't understand how that business category works and how strong the mark is in terms of that within that industry. That's why it's just fascinating a lot. But I guess I'll get back to letting you guys, if there's any other legal mistakes or misconceptions that domain investors make that I didn't sort of ask about.
How about this one? I bought it because it was available.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and Zach and Steve have both seen these things. There are circumstances where somebody registers a domain name, for I might lose electricity soon, by the way. We have a very severe thunderstorm coming in.
Oh.
But someone registers a domain name for the best of reasons. But, it's one of those situations where the police came into your house and there you were standing over, your dead spouse with a knife in your hand. And there may have been a very complicated set of circumstances that led to this tableau. But, sometimes you have to advise the client, I get you. I hear what you're saying. But at the end of the day, your case is not going to be viewed as credible by a panel. And in a lot of those situations, I say, go talk to Zach, and Zach wins them, And a lot of times they come back like a couple of days later. This is my favorite one. They come back 3 days later and they say, hey, you said I couldn't win this UDRP case. And I'm like, well, yeah, in my opinion, I think, your likelihood of winning it, despite your good intentions, is very low. And they'll say, oh, well, Steve Lieberman said, all right. And they'll go off on this, and I'm always like, well, why do you call me back, to tell me what Steve Lieberman said, And I usually encourage them to hire Steve Lieberman.
And I do the same for you. But oftentimes the client that says, I got this new TLD that I want, GTLD it's really great, and I'm registering all the single letter domains I can. And, maybe I registered I.bm and I really need help. So the first thing I'd say is call John. I mean, he's the only one that can help you in that sort of case.
Oh no.
You're muted again, John.
Oh wait, no, you're mute. Oh, you're mute.
I like it that way.
I don't. John, you share so much stuff in the industry. You should never be on mute. You should perpetually unmuted. So, any other kinds of mistakes you guys see domain investors make? Common ones.
Yes. Okay, and number one, don't play lawyer. There can be a lot of aspects. I mean, a lot of domain disputes, sometimes they're very simple, and someone can ask you a question about their domain problem, and you can give them a quick, simple answer. Sometimes it's a complicated answer. What I tell people is, well, tell me what your question is, and I'll tell you whether or not you have a simple answer or a complicated answer. But when you do think you might want to contact an attorney for help on your domain problem, okay, don't send an email to don't send an email that BCCs all of us.
Oh no.
And ask the same question. All right, no. It doesn't say. Do it one at a time.
We do all talk.
we do chat because as I mentioned, sometimes I will refer work to Zach if I was particularly overloaded this week. There was somebody that needed help, and I will sometimes call ahead and say, hey, I got this red hot mess that I can't deal with right now. Take it. Or I basically, I think the guy has a loser of the case, and I'll say, go talk to Steven Zach or something like that. But don't write to a lawyer and say, I have a domain, or the subject line, domain problem. Hey, imagine how that stands out in my inbox. I have a domain trademark problem. I'd like to talk to you about it. Jim, right? And what's great is the email is from Alice320 at gmail.com, and it's signed Jim. I need help. And it's like, oh, okay, well, can you briefly describe, who you are, who they are? Maybe his problem is with somebody I already work with, which I would want to know immediately. So I have to know, who are the parties, what is the domain name, and who are you? Because if you're consulting with a lawyer, if you are seeking a consultation, and if I grant you, a consultation, okay, I am going to have a discussion with you as a prospective client in confidence. You are entitled to important legal protections. In order to protect those rights of yours and your confidentiality and privilege in our discussion, even though unpaid, I have to know who you are. Okay. Yeah. And so hiding it from me, and then it's like, okay, well, I'll tell you what, the domain name, I don't want to tell you the domain name, but the domain name, it's kind of like this. It's like if somebody had a trademark in blank studio, all right, and I have, black studio, it's sort of like that. Here's the deal. We are professionals. We are here to help you, all right? And in order to figure out whether we can help you or on what terms we can help you or whether you can be helped, we have to know what your problem is. Nobody goes to the doctor and says, all right, there's a part of my body, it's got kind of a white rash on, and it's like, who does that? You go to the doctor, you say, hey, there's something wrong with my foot, right? But you don't play this game, and you don't say, oh, I have a friend who has a problem. Let me tell you what it's kind of like. I will either tell you, to get lost or trust me at some point. Oops, there we go again. Yep. But yeah, you have to work constructively with an attorney. I'm not going to start billing you, until I know.
Until you know, and we lost you. That looks so. John, we lost you for a second there. Yeah, it sounds amazing. It looks amazing. We lost. You're saying we're not going to charge you until, and we lost the rest. Try connecting again. Oh wait, unmute maybe. Right now you're on mute, but
probably he's saying that he won't charge you until actually he thinks whether he can help, and it's probably send you a retainer agreement as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
the storm up there is terrible. So I think
Yeah, he mentioned that. Yeah, yeah, big storm up there. I'm trying to think what else did. Oh, there he is. I got him back now. There we go. And we're back. You're gonna say you're not gonna charge until, and then Steven kind of filled in the blank, but you can.
Oh,
You're back.
yeah. Until I've made that initial assessment that I can do something for you, that it's worth doing something for you. People sometimes get upset in that, it's up to me whether or not, to take your case. I've had people come to me and said, look, there is, a close to zero probability that I can do anything productive for you. I can charge you, a couple of $1,000s to do something that's not going to work. And I don't, I personally don't like to do that. It is kind of strange where people are like, well, I'll pay you, but do it anyway. And it's like, well, no, I like to take money to help people out, not just to take the money. But until I start the meter and say, here we have this fee agreement of some kind, whatever it might be, then no, I'm not going to talk to you on the phone one day at random and then send a bill to your house or report you to the police or the other side or whatever.
Okay, so here we had another question that was already answered, but I just wanted to say it out loud so those of you watching on YouTube and listening on Clubhouse can get an idea. We have what we recommend we do if we get UDRP of a lower value name where it doesn't make any sense to pay for an attorney. Steven said don't respond to it. I guess it's because any particular reason why of that, or
if it's not worth responding to, it's not making any money, it's not of any great value. The one nice thing about the UDRP, as we were saying before, is just no damages. They get the domain name. The only other thing you do instead of not responding is give them the domain name. Cut it off the chase.
Yeah, just on that point, Steven's right, of course, is that many domain names aren't worth defending, aren't worth spending a lawyer on, and you need to try to give it back, quote unquote, to the complaint. One exception about letting the case go against you, of course, is that you don't want the strike against your name, right? So if you have a worthless domain name and you let the UDRP go against you on this particular occasion, then the next time you actually have a defendable case, a clever complainant's attorney is going to cite that unfortunate case where you didn't even defend against you in the subsequent case. So that's really no exception to the rule. But yeah, you have to think about this as a business person, whether it's actually worth spending money to defend a particular name.
Yeah, WIPO started when WIPO does a notice of commencement now, they include their standard settlement form. So, because I had always said to them, it'd be great if the UDRP process just had a tick box where if you get notified of a UDRP, you have a tick box, say, notify the registrar, transfer the name, whatever. I don't want it. I bought it in bulk. I shouldn't have it. It's no admission of anything. But WIPO now, when they commence the UDRP, they actually send you a form where if you fill it out and sign it, WIPO will say, okay, they've agreed they want to transfer it. Then they'll say to the complainant, do you want to wait a month and get a decision and stroke your ego? Or do you want us to tell the registrar to transfer the domain?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Once in a while, you run into a complainant who won't let you settle the case, right? That's always annoying. They say, listen, the domain name ended up in my client's back pocket. He doesn't know how it got there. He's got no interest in fighting this. He doesn't want to pay me. Doesn't want you to wait for the domain. Willing to give it to you. What do you say that we sign the paperwork this afternoon, huh? And they say, not so fast. We spent $1,500 on this, plus our attorneys were like, go ahead, John. Yeah.
Well, you just hit the key point. If it's WIPO, you tell the attorney. You get $1,000 back, and WIPO has to tell your client.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, so WIPO has a bottle deposit essentially, right? You get the $1,000 back, And NAF doesn't have that procedure. So that really changes the dynamics between the providers, because you actually have a play to make with WIPO. You can say the complaint, listen, you can actually save your client money by settling this, or make more fees by settling this. That's a key one. I never thought of that.
They'll get a nice dinner in a hotel room for that $1,000. You know what I mean?
Here we have, so somebody wants a little bit more, Ellen wants to, hey Ellen, wants to know more clarification on the first name, last name thing. So back to the, first name, last name.com examples, whereas johnsmith.com or janedoe.com are clearly commonplace, and arifmirza.com would not be so. How does one determine a line? Example, if someone registers a modest author's first name, last name.com, before the author decides to register it, anticipating forthcoming fame, what are the author's options?
You know, the reality to all of this stuff is you have to base it on the facts. That, I mean, we said before that all of this are grays. You know, someone comment up there about Bruce Springsteen. You know, I think probably that's a famous name. And there aren't too many Bruce Springsteens out there.
Rabbi Bruce Springsteen in Brooklyn. That's why they registered the name.
Exactly.
So it was one of the early fan site cases. Yeah, Alberta Hot Rod put that guy up in Canada, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
The thing with fan sites is, you know, why is somebody who's a fan getting into a fight with the with their idol in the first place, right? Now, I've seen lots of situations where you know, it has worked out well. I have where people were genuine fans and they had the domain name and they got some, you know, trinkets or whatever, you know, I had a client who had the domain name richlittle.com, the guy who actually performs at the Tropicana still probably, and because he was a fan, and Rich Little was so thrilled that he got the domain name from this guy, and this guy agreed to be his webmaster, that he said, I'll invite you and whatever friends you want to bring to Las Vegas. And so guess who he brought to stay as a guest of Rich Little. And,
wow.
And while I was there, I got married. All right.
Uh-huh.
So I actually got,
but you were already married, John. What happened?
well, we actually, that's between me and the police. But in any event, a celebrity domain name led to my second marriage.
That's amazing.
Congratulations.
Hey, Reef, I'm going to have to drop off shortly, but
So yeah, that's good. We've gotten near the end of the session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys wrap up, to say, you know, a little bit what you're up to and where people get in touch with you. And then for those of you who can and want to stay can do so. It's the end of the day, so we usually turn into a social. What I'll do is anybody who wants to come up, put your hands up. Bear in mind, we'll still be live on YouTube. We'll still be recorded. We're still on Clubhouse. So if you put your hand up, please, it's with the intent of actually participating in the conversation with your camera on. But anybody, you know, in the attendance is welcome to that. You can start putting up now, so I'll know who's coming up afterwards. And then again,
if you hit the tip button, Steve starts taking his clothes off.
We'll start that after the YouTube closes. Recording optional though, but before letting you guys do your closing statements, I just really sincerely want to say, really from the bottom of my heart, for somebody who's really interested in this stuff, I'm so grateful to all the information you provide to us. It's being a domain investor, to claim ignorance on trademark issues if you get hit with something is not a legitimate excuse. You know, if you're investing in domains, you have to know about trademark issues. And thankfully, we're in an industry where we have multiple, but also specifically these three gentlemen here who put time and energy, whether it be podcasts, coming on these panels, coming on the domain social, posting in forums, whatever it is, there is literally, I want to say hundreds, but thousands of hours of energy put into these resources that available to you. And there's no excuse not to know this stuff. If you get hit by a UDRP, I'm pretty sure the three people here can tell me that you cannot claim, I didn't know what a UDRP was as a defense. So having that information is just crucial. And the three of you, again, have just been so generous with your time and energy and information. I really want to thank the three of you for that, and also for being here today, for being my heroes, and just providing us with a great time that I knew it would be. I had like questions here and there and structure. I'm like, within 3 minutes, I was like, I'm having fun, because these guys are awesome. And just, I really, really appreciate all you do. So on that note, I'll let you guys Zach, I'll let you go first because you have to go. So I'll let it just, there's some closing remarks, and if anyone wants to get in touch with you.
Well, Arif, thank you so much for having me. And listen, I could sit here for hours and just listen to Stevan and John myself.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a colleague of theirs, I'm as entertained and enlightened by them as you or any of the people listening today. So thank you for including me in this, and I look forward to doing it again sometime. Thank you, Stevan and John.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Zach.
Yeah, Zach. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, or is your caseload full? I don't know. I let you promote yourself. Yeah. First of all, the ICA is there, right? But I mean, for your, if somebody has a legal issue and they want to come hire you, what is there a method?
Try to stay out of trouble first.
Oh, okay.
Stay out of trouble. Hopefully you don't need my services or Steven's or John's. But yeah, I have a website at DNAttorney.com. You're welcome to visit me and ask me whatever stupid questions you have.
This is the portrait. This is the portrait I keep by my desk of Zach. I said, somebody one time told me I was a little, what do I want to say? A little rough around the edges, and that I should be calmer and friendlier like Zach. And I said, well, if only I had a portrait of him to inspire me. And an anonymous person sent me this portrait, a beautiful portrait of Zach, in the classic yogi pose, And so I keep this by my desk, and whenever I get angry or frustrated or just want to tear somebody's throat out, I look at it and think, what would Zach do? So there you are.
Well, I can't believe I have such a place of honor. John is an idol of mine. I've looked up to him from the moment I started doing UDRP, so it's a real honor, John.
All right, Stevan. Yeah. Anybody want to?
This has been fun. Thank you very much. Plug for APLegal, plug for escrow domains. Escrow domains is our escrow site, which we're constantly working on, and hopefully will be finished before I die. And APLegal is our law firm site. So thank you much, and absolutely, John, you are the idol of many.
So
and
now,
Wiley
Stevan,
Fish, you forgot Wiley Fish.
Well, Wiley Fish is coming up too, and
now, Stevan, this is the part where John tells us that he doesn't need a website as a lawyer because he's not like these other lawyers that need websites to promote themselves.
He has a website. It's the simplest thing. We used to have johnberryhill.info, and we had this great picture up there of John wearing a mitre. I think I'm going to have to put it back up.
But no, John doesn't need a website. That's the fact. It's word of mouth with you, John, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. The other, like I said, the people who know me, who write to me and say, "Hi, John," and tell me some vague information about a problem and don't say who they are. I always feel a little weirded out by that. Like, I don't even know who you are, and you're calling me John. But it's
better than Johnny Boy.
It's almost preferable to sometimes where you get emails, and maybe someday I'll break down and explain, who I am and what I do, because I do get emails from people who say, "Oh, well, someone referred us to you. Tell us about yourself and what you do." And it's like, look, number one, you get me talking about myself, I'm never going to shut up. All right. And number two, I got a lot of other things to do. I like working for people who know what I do. And if someone referred you to me and it's someone you trust, then go ahead and trust them. But yeah, I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about, how how many more cases I've done than these other guys, how I'm the leader in RDNH decisions.
Other than comparison to Ari?
I haven't checked lately. I actually haven't checked lately.
Steven, I told you this
it doesn't matter. I believe it's true. And you count Jason Ari as a unit?
Absolutely. Ari needs all the help to keep up with you. I hope he's watching.
We'll make him watch.
Yeah, as I said, everything's a little fuzzy, definitions of numbers, and it's never an exact science, right? But yeah, so so did you actually not have a way people get in touch with you? You're fully loaded right now. We don't want anybody who needs to.
I mean, my contact information is on my website, and it's interesting. Like you had mentioned Name Pros earlier. I don't go in this world. I haven't visited Name Pros in a while. And I don't go in there and read DMs because I don't know who has access to DMs. I don't know, what goes on with communication. And my signature line says, "Don't DM me. If you want to get in touch with me, send an email." Right? And I do not provide an email address.
That's the first hurdle that you have to cross to become a Berryhill client.
That's the test.
The IQ test.
If you can't find my email address, I don't want to talk to you.
Challenge accepted. I might have to find yours, but yeah, I searched hard because I'm really a fan of you guys. So
you either end up with me or a restaurant in Idaho.
Oh, what kind of restaurant?
It's a bacon specialty restaurant. John Berryhill is the leading restaurateur of Boise, Idaho, actually, where the Mark Monitor people, the former Mark Monitor people still are. As it turns out, John Berryhill, the restaurateur, who I think he's Jay Berryhill on Twitter. We used to, race each other to get domain names and social media handles. And I found out that he actually went to high school with another prominent attorney in this field, Brett Fawcett, which was really strange.
That is weird.
But yeah, it's almost like we knew each other. But yeah, if you're in Idaho the next time, I know everybody loves to go to Boise. They have great food, but not much legal advice. Although if you send email to him, he will refer it to me. Likewise, I sometimes get catering requests, and I send them.
Does he do gift baskets? I mean, if so,
No,
we could send some bacon and maybe a large jug of milk to Jason.
Steven, that's one you could get away with.
On that note, I got to go myself.
Yeah. All right, guys, I really appreciate it. Again, anybody in the audience wants to come up afterwards, we're going to have a little discussions. We lost Zach, so thank you to that, Zach. Thank you, Steven. Thanks so much for this. Thanks for coming on the socials in the past. I know whenever we had a legal discussion that kind of got complicated, all we needed to do was say your name 3 times, and somehow you mysteriously showed up. But I'm appreciative of that. And
Just luck. All right. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye,
Take
John.
care. Yeah, John, I've been honestly a fan of yours. Your discussion, you're on mute, so you can just listen to me praise you, which is fine.
Thank you very much.
And I was gonna say, like, the information you provide is a good thing. However, the humor in your responses sometimes is amazing. If you guys are not interested in the law, go read his stuff on Name Pros just for the entertainment value. It's 11 out of 10. I swear, it's like it makes the law so enjoyable just to see you go off on your little tangents.
One other thing on selecting lawyers, and the lawyers that you have to choose from in this field, all have different personalities, different approaches. There are some people who, I do not seem to get along with well, because of that. Because yeah, I enjoy what I do. I have a passion for what I do, and it comes out, as fun around the sides. And it's sort of like, well, what if you went to a funeral home with your dead mother, and he really enjoys his work, It's like, all right, well, maybe not the most appropriate thing, but I do have a sort of a fun ratio discount. If you have a really interesting situation, then sometimes I feel like I should be sending you cash just for the entertainment value. But some people don't have fun the way I do. I had a terrible experience. I had a client actually cuss me out. I also do patent work, and I was doing a patent opinion for someone accused of patent infringement. Did a complete analysis of their situation, and I called them up on the phone and wanted to talk to them because I had just sent them the opinion, and I wanted to point out how the opinion works and so forth. And I had some trouble with my microphone, as I always do. And I heard her hang up in exasperation. And I called back again. And I said, "Don't hang up. It's John Berryhill." And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I got a lot of junk calls." And I said, "Well, actually, I called to talk to you about your car's extended warranty, right?" She didn't understand that it was actually me and I was joking.
Oh, no.
And I'd never heard so many F-bombs, and I'm like, no, don't hang up on me again. I'm really John Berryhill. And she was finally like, you. So, but other people might not think that's funny, for their lawyer to say, "I'm calling about your car's extended warranty."
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I know I reached out to you once before. I had a fellow domainer who reached out to me for help. And I remember a couple of years ago, just messaging you, and the thing is, this person was in another corner of the world where the funds were an issue, but you gave some good advice to me to help him, because he couldn't afford anything more, but it went a long way. It's you probably don't remember because there's tons of other stuff there, but this person had a one word, generic word, but also the word of a top 100 global brand. In a one of these repurposed TLDs, and so one word plus not a .com, but still one of the upper more popular TLDs, and it ended up being I was really able to help this person a lot. And again, it's thanks to people like you. The lawyer came in with these claims of grandeur, saying my client such and such thinks that this you have this thing, and it's we let you hand over the domain, and all these. It was worded very carefully so that there wasn't really any direct accusation, but a lot of insinuations. And again, it's thanks to guys like you that I was able to read it, not for what it was, the picture that was painted, but for the actual elements in it. I was going, no accusation there, no accusation there, no accusation there, and I go, okay, so the first thing you want to do is this, and the lawyer went 3 times and he said, well, legal action and all this stuff. And he didn't even say legal action. He goes, I might recommend my clients take legal action. He didn't even say we're going to take legal action. It was just all these wishy-washy terms.
If I don't hear from you in 10 days, I shall tell my client to consider whether they might start thinking about taking some sort of action if they have any against you.
Yeah, and then and exactly, and I just played the game, and you know what? That's why I see your passion, because the game I played with this other lawyer was a work of art. What I did, it was like first thing I go, okay, well, what is the what's the trademark? I kept on asking these questions, letting him just get into more and more deeper water, and then it was like eventually I went over his head and went to the company and told the company, get this guy to get off the back, and that's what happened, right? Because he was just ridiculous. But it was the way he operated that it was just, I find was really a little bit cheesy or whatever you call it, a little bit dirty. And again, it's because I was informed that I was able to help this other individual really take it up, and and I have to say it was so much fun, because like I kept on asking this lawyer, well, what do you think why do you think this, and then afterwards, like, think this and this and that, and then please hand over the domain or whatever it is, and I wouldn't respond. 2 weeks later, I'd get a response, again saying, well, you didn't respond. So what, have you decided whatever it is? And I go, you didn't state anything that was wrong. So I thought it was over. You know what I mean? I played like I mean, well, you said all these things, but there was no accusation. There was nothing. There's no statement of fact in there that could be interpreted as an argument that this person was infringing on the trademark, which he wasn't. The mark is there. It's a one-word mark. It's a generic word, and he was not. It was parked. It was not like there's no ads or anything like that. It was very clearly a case of just bullying, and again, it's thanks to the information you guys put out there, I was able to help this guy. So again, and with you guys, I always talk legal stuff about domains often. I'm not a lawyer. If you have a very serious issue, go see John, go see the other experts in the industry, but inform yourselves. If you have this information in your head, you already have a huge head start, and you can know what to respond to and what not to respond to. So again, I just want to thank you for that, because it was helpful to this individual. And it was so much fun for me because, and I see your passion. I see why you get into these conversations that sometimes look like just ridiculously funny, but yeah, it makes sense to me. And that's why I was so happy you came on board today.
All right. Well, it's been great. I have obviously a couple of calls coming in that I had to deal with while this was going on. I'm going to go back and see what they want.
Yeah, and good luck with the storm.
All right. Yeah, it's really coming in. Take care.
Thanks again, John. Take care. Bye-bye. All right. So, wow, that was like, dream panel for me. So if anybody, so here's the thing. Last couple of days, people seem to be shy to come on while we're on YouTube and recording. So I'm going to give it a minute or two. I'm going to talk about a few things about the Domainer Week. And then if anybody wants to put your hand up while we're recording, so basically with the intent of coming on camera and talking about whatever we talked about today or anything else, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording and go on. So yeah, okay, I see already one person has their hand up. So just hold on a second. I'm just going to talk about the Domainer Week, and we're going to pull people up who want to come up and discuss a little bit further. So basically Domainer Week is that's day 7. That to me, that was this past session was awesome. You've probably heard me say a million times, so I'm not going to say it again. These guys are real heroes to me. I have no history in law, but when I did get on the internet, I did have an old music site, so digital ethics were already a big deal to me. And then coming into domains, you really need to know the basics. You don't have to know everything. You go to them for the more complicated things, but keep yourself out of trouble. Know what's right and what's wrong. And there are lots of gray zones, so just have a good informed knowledge set of what's right and what's wrong. And when it's gray, go see them. But I see a lot of abuse by trademark owners in this matter. So it's good to know what your rights are. But on the other side, I see a lot of new domain investors who very innocently don't know that registering certain domains can get them in trouble and is wrong. It also gives a bad impression on this industry if there are a lot of domainers who go after the wrong types of domains that are infringing, right? So that's why, please, be careful, inform yourselves. Again, legal stuff can be long and tedious and boring sometimes, but if you have guys like these 3 individuals today, it can be a lot of fun. You see, I think some of us learned a lot today. We did wander a bit, but it was pretty good information. So on that note, so yeah, I'll just do some housekeeping at the end. Thank you for people listening on Clubhouse. Those of you who want to join us, come on over here to the Zoom link, the Zoom session. Check the email I sent out earlier on today for the link. Those of you watching on YouTube, thank you. I know a lot of people watch in replay. So if you are, please hit that like button and subscribe. I keep on forgetting to say that, but do that. Hit the like and subscribe. Those of you on Clubhouse, follow myself and follow the DomainPodcast that I created for these types of sessions going forward. If you want to watch in hindsight, go to live.domainerweek.com. I've set that to forward to the YouTube channel, where you can see all the previous videos of this week. You can see many of the older domain socials that I have up there. You can see a few of the domain panels I have up that were some more technical discussions. All great information. And what else you should know? So for the rest of the week, check the schedule at domainerweek.com. And you'll see there. So, well, basically, there's 2 days left. Friday will be the final domain social. I'm still tinkering with the session right before it, but most of the day will be just the last domain social. It's been a very special year for me meeting all of you. I just want to spend the last, big chunk of the last day with everybody together, just socializing. But I am trying to put together something really special before that. So be sure to be there. However, before that, tomorrow, I have, starting the day, a one-on-one with Rob Monster, the CEO of Epic. That will be, again, at the start of the day, 1 p.m. Eastern. Go to domainofweek.com. I have on the right side all the time zones that you can check. So it'll be that's there. That's at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern. So a one-on-one with Rob Monster. Then about 45 minutes later, I have a one-on-one with Morgan Linton from Boldmetrics. But it's not so much Boldmetrics. He's a real ambassador to this industry, as I said, for the person after him as well. Morgan, he's provided so much information through his blog and presence in conferences and stuff like that. So I'm really honored to have him on. And then after that, at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, so again 11:30 a.m. Pacific, Braden Pollock. And under him, I put domain ambassador, because he's if you don't know who he is, he's all over the place. Really well respected in this industry and has a lot of insight and knowledge on all corners of it. And he's going to be doing a Q&A, and he's so insightful and knowledgeable that I might actually, after 8 days, be able to jump off screen and take care of a couple of things for the final day. So he's going to be there for until the final roundtable at about 4 o'clock. We have Alvin Brown, Sam Charles, and Joseph Seipert, who's a fairly regular staple on the socials, and you all know he's had a very, very popular significant sale last year. So we'll have him there to share his expert advice as well. Sam is a really, really smart domain investor. He's based in the UK, a really smart guy. And Alvin, obviously from Kickstart Commerce. If you guys aren't listening to his podcast, then you're missing out on information on this industry. So again, so tomorrow's gonna be a fantastic second to last day before wrapping it all up, and before I get all teary-eyed and whatnot. So again, thanks to everybody. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna see if anybody put their hands up. I'm gonna here we go, and we can continue discussion. And then once we've kind of talked down this discussion, I'm gonna stop the recording on YouTube and here, and then I'll bring everybody up and we can continue the discussion even further. So here we go. I think I have Todd wanting to come up and say a couple of things. Where is he? It takes a couple of seconds. Hey, Todd, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, boy, that was really good. I mean, you waited for this day and it was worth it. And the prelim, I mean, just seeing Kamila and Zach and Nat was perfect. And I couldn't help but say in the conversation, can't wait to see him. Nat just happened to hit on some things in his Twitter recently that was like my main thing that I think if I got more involved, that would be it. And it's, it would be changing that process. And you made the good point, bringing it up, and people brought it up before, but that is the penalty. There should be a penalty. And then like John said here, well, we could do it with a bond. Well, yeah, then I like that, with a bond, and and John was saying, he doesn't for or against, because he knows if you put this up, lawyers are going to find ways, okay, so this is another hurdle this way, or you're causing this, but we're going to figure out how to get it back. And then Stevan, of course, said in federal court, you can actually get it paid, that's where you go. So really, it made me think, if we can't amend or adjust federal court rules, right, then, and it's hard to, and now at least we can get attorney fees there, to do this with UDRP. Yeah, I'm thinking like you, that is there an ICANN meeting when they're actually going to be discussing the UDRP changes, and then we have at least a seat there? Like you said, maybe it's one seat out of 20 seats.
Yeah.
We have to be there. And when is that meeting?
So From my understanding, it's coming up. Like I think within the months ahead, or in that sort of time frame. And actually, it was mentioned earlier on that it's the availability to speak has been, I think, reduced a bit. In terms of like before, they used to allow almost anybody who wanted to talk, and now I think it's more of a selective process. I think maybe you have to apply to talk or whatever it is. Again, that's the big hurdle here, right? It's there's a huge process just to be part of the discussion, and that's the issue. Is that already for domain investors, the biggest problem is, first of all, most domain investors don't get self-informed, right? They're not even aware there is a possible issue, and then for the few that do get informed and really want to do something, then the next question is, well, how do I do it? It just seems like, ICANN is this big organization, international organization, and it's like there's a million email addresses, a million sort of round tables and different sections, and it's like it's overwhelming. For somebody who doesn't know how big operations work, it's an issue. So I might look. You could tell by today, I'm super interested in this kind of stuff, but like I wouldn't know where to begin. So what do? I know it's an issue. I support the ICA. That's the one thing you can do first and foremost. Todd, I know you're also a member there, and I also know you also once a week on Clubhouse. You have a panel where you share information too. You're part of the solution, right? Where you talk about the legal issues every week of what's been going on, and that's important. Like people like you who do that kind of stuff. And again, like Stevan, who used to come in here all the time, whenever there's an issue, somebody pinged him for sure, and he came on, right? He came on a blink of the eye to help inform the rest of us. John has all his posts up on Name Pros, and he's on occasional podcasts. Zach too, he's on podcasts, and he actually goes to these meetings and represents us. So yeah, you're right. Aim for ICANN Puerto Rico meeting March 2022. I don't know if that's an option for me, but I say again, I wouldn't really even know what to do. By the way, Phil or anybody else, if you want to come up, there's a feature on the bottom of the screen. Put hands up if you want to participate, and it doesn't have to be all legal mumbo jumbo stuff. It's the after party now, so there's 2 stages to the after thing. It's going to be, as long as Todd and I talk or anybody else talk about legal stuff, I'm going to keep recording. And then, when things die down, I'll stop the recording and anyone else can come on. But again, just use the raise hand feature and you're welcome to come up, or text me in the chat and I'll add you up on the panel here. But yeah, Todd, I mean, it was a interesting panel today, I found.
One of the most interesting things Steven said right at the end was, just don't answer. Okay, because we were asking, but I think we didn't drill down. You were good about it, but it's like, that's why I was even in the chat saying, so I just don't want to give up my name. There's like saying, give it up, and I understand they're looking at either the name's worth it or it's not. You don't want to get entangled in one of these if it's not worth it, but you're still saying, well, my name, maybe it's only worth $500 or $1,500 or $2,500. And not only that, I don't have the money to pay $6,000. I love you guys. I don't have the money. That's 95% of the domainers, 98%. And I don't have the money. So I'm just asking one more time. You're saying don't answer at all. Don't look at the cases. It's like a guy like me. Before I could afford, don't answer at all. So you're saying don't. One thing I did pick up is when you do answer, like I have before in the past with some of my acronyms, don't just say this is a common acronym. Use case after case, show the Google search. And I've done that too. But you know what? Like John said, fuck it. I'll do 100 times what I did before. Before I just be like pompous. Look, this is a boom, boom, boom. He's like, no, you got to go the depth. Okay, well, I'm willing to, almost do that. And sometimes it's about principle. I know what my time's worth too. The fuck, excuse my language. I know what my time's worth.
We're live on YouTube.
It's unbelievable. But sometimes you want to fight back. And when you are off the YouTube, I'm going to say about the time I contacted John, he was very helpful to me. And it was a time where I couldn't afford to pay anyone or connect with any other lawyers at the time because of other issues I had with the federal government. That's all I'll say for now. But my point is, so doing him a fit and thinking, but I still need some help here. Right now, I can't even get the legal counsel I want. So are you saying one more time, don't answer at all? That's my best bet. Don't answer, even if, you know what I mean? And they're saying don't answer.
Yeah.
More Stevan was saying it as a, believe me, you're probably going to lose. You just give it away and walk away. Well,
Yeah.
I did that. I would do, I even answered, I even fought against Land Rover. When I
my only issue with that, which I would love to ask them more, but obviously their time is really precious. I'm really grateful for them staying as long as they did. But yeah, the problem is that if you do lose, like, does that get held against you in the future? It's like, in theory it should be separate, but they say with UDRPs, if you have a history of UDRPs, it shows that you have a history of bad faith, and that could be used against you. So that would be my worry about not responding. But maybe the benefits outweighs the the negatives.
Well, each time they're going to have to, because I lost the Land Rover and I lost to a bank. I think I won one, but I got the one back from the bank, and the Land Rover one I said they could keep, but I still answered it because I was like, there's fair use even if you are Land Rover. Okay, there's fair use, and I wasn't doing it, but it's the time. It was still a bad decision. I should have kept that one, but I didn't care, of course, because I'm like, but just walking away from the names is like, that's a tough one for a lot of domainers. You got a $500 name and you get a UDRP on it, should you answer? I wanted to make one comment that you said you were fascinated because of the different interpretations. Yeah, that's me too. That's like generally me too. I'm a businessman, but when I was in law school, they were, talking about when you're in a courtroom, it's like poetry and whoever can do it, just exactly like Berryhill was saying, it's almost the words, and you said it. Yeah, I'm onto that. It's more of the flow. And that's why the smart lawyers know, well, if we want to be reckless or ruthless or aggressive, we can almost go after all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then I'll finish by saying he when he alluded to, and I'm going to think about get my thoughts together on when he alluded to, lawyers, and I mentioned this yesterday, lawyers trying to protect their customers, their clients, but yet going, hey, look what I found. And it's nothing, but we can go after them. You pay me. And then he even said in the settlement, when you can settle, your client doesn't know that you get the refund. That's pretty funny, but that's the truth. They don't even know. But there's all sorts of things. Those pros are worth the $6,000. So even me for my shittiest name now, $7,000-8,000, I think I would go with those pros because they know, and then they're still not 100% to get your name.
Yeah.
But that's
and it's important to know that sometimes. So here's the thing with trademarks is that what I think many people know, but maybe many more don't, is that as a trademark owner, you're actually supposed to actively defend your mark, right? So you're supposed to go out in the world and actually poke your head out, check around, make sure nobody's using it, and if it happens, you're supposed to defend it. You're supposed to tell them, please stop, and you're supposed to make an active sort of an active sort of effort to protect your brand, within reason, and conversely, if you open up a business, you're supposed to kind of, do a little bit of search and be a little bit aware of if you're infringing on somebody's brand. But, oftentimes you have different jurisdictions that are very far apart in the world, and these two entities can exist very peacefully with the same brand, even sometimes in the same business, but because there's no geographic sort of connection between them, like they're independent, it's no problem. The world of the internet comes along, and unfortunately it's like both entities want to become global because they want to start sending themselves online. You have issues. But just getting back to that though, is that so as a business, you're supposed to do something to make an effort to protect your brand, and part of that with some larger trademark holders is that they'll hire these just basically law firms or these trademark protection agencies like Mark Monitor or some of these bigger players for general brand protection, and this is where the issue comes to play sometimes, is that the company will hire the trademark holder will hire this trademark company where they specialize in sort of protecting trademarks and the domain names, and basically pay them a monthly fee, right? And in order to justify this monthly fee, the lawyers in that trademark protection agency, they got to do work. And so what do? They go and they find domains that they think are kind of close to infringing. And whether they are or not, like in the case that happened when I was trying to help out this other domainer, they were most certainly not, but they're paid. So they send out these emails, and you know what? Because it comes in this scary email format from a lawyer, most domain investors get scared and hand over the domain, or they don't have the money to fight it and they just give it up. And that's why these things are so important, because there are some times you get this letter and the company itself doesn't even know that they sent it, right? The trademark company doesn't know. They pay this lawyer's office a monthly fee, and this lawyer just sends out these random emails to create hours of work, right? And sometimes they might be justified and sometimes they're not, but oftentimes they just don't care, because whether justified or not, oftentimes they'll just get the domain owner to surrender the domain, because the domain owner does not attend sessions like this one and inform themselves. So yeah, that's why it's really important, to know your stuff when it comes to domain law and stuff like that, at least the basics. So yeah, anyhow.
I wanted to say, and now domains are that easy target. In the old days, they would look for trademark infringers, and now they can't wait to look at domains and the extensions, and they know, why? Because in the marketing departments, all the departments, we know everything's online. And then you really said it when you were saying everybody was just geographic. I'm a plumber here, Jet Plumbing here, and now we're not trying to even go global, just national. So all these ones just in the US are now realizing, oh, we're the one. And then whoever has the .com, like I'm fortunate in a certain sector, I got a lot of people like, we're the one. I'm like, not only did I start before you, but I have that domain. I have that. So those are all helpful. But then some people still come in and say, well, we were the one over here, so, and it's like, you everything on your side, but domain name registration too is a big tool in the lawyer's arsenal when they are fighting for you too. So that's like, it's more important than a doing business as, and that's important before you ever create your LLC, or that's what a lot of us business guys have done for years, way back to 1988. I'm just saying, you do your DBA, and then you eventually maybe start form it into an LLC or a corporation. But all your paperwork for your company stuff is important when you're showing. Here I had a common law mark up until then, which all the smart companies do up until then, and then I filed with the USPTO. And in the cannabis sector, which I'm in, that's a reason why you really have to have your records good to show I do business as this is me, because when the time comes, everybody's running, and they're like, now you try to get your stuff before you, and you're like, we're just gonna have to fight the right way in court. And now, of course, I joke around when you go on the street, but no, you got to be prepared for a court. That's why I always prepare myself if I ever need to use these domain lawyers. No, I do at the start, I'm sure like you, and that is not register names that I don't even almost like no chance of infringing, even though I've done that in the past. I'm ABC Productions. Before I didn't care. I'll do what I want. I know I have rights. Now I'm like, I know I have all sorts of rights, but first name, last name, I own Julie Rogers. I got it. I don't know when I got that 5 years ago. So generic. I never knew a Julie Rogers. I still don't. I'm sure I could go on LinkedIn and find a Julie Rogers. I don't even do that. I don't care. But my point is, you and I know there's some domainers that still do it. And you know what? They do have rights to do it. It's a touchy thing. I'm with you. If somebody contacted me and John was talking about, they were flattered. And I remember Jason.com gave Mel Blanc his name back. You know what I mean? Bugs Bunny voice, very flattered. A lot of them aren't flattered. A lot of them are like, I know why you got Kim Kardashian fucking club, because you wanted to meet me. You know what I mean? It's like weird things. And I knew the guy, and it's like, you wanted to give back. And I would even say, I feel bad, but Rick Schwartz owns Terry Bradshaw, and he can't seem to give it back over all these years, can't find a way. And Terry Bradshaw's got a new line of all sorts of stuff. Nothing against Rick. He has a right to keep it. And I was, but it's like those type of names. Sean Penn goes to Ardow. Listen, I'm a big Chad fan. He's a groundbreaker. Okay.
Just to remind you, we're still on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So he's a groundbreaker, like Chad, but he knows he has rights. These are important cases. He knows he has rights to own SeanPenn.com. It's like you want to get it back.
Well, it depends on how you use it, right? Depends on how you use it. And the problem is that the moment you reach out to them, then you're looking for profit. And that's where the trademark issue comes to play, right? Because if you're not trying to profit from it, then yeah, the argument can be made. It's fair. It's fair. Yeah.
Well,
But the moment you reach out to the person, that's why it worries me to see a lot of people who have these first name, last name.coms. If they're outreaching to somebody specifically, then and that person uses their name in business, it's an issue, right?
That's right. That's why the key is and in the ASCP or the Anti-Cyber Squatting Protection Act, okay, ACPA, that says if that's your legal name, you're already set, meaning you don't have to show that you use it in business. So you don't have to, that's you. So you have standing. Now you have to show that they've made it commercial. But the thing is, why wouldn't they show, and not to get specifics, but when you direct it to one of your sites, how could you not be benefiting from my likeness? You know what I mean? Like, hey, you're going to my name. I'm known as that. I do have rights to my own name, and you're sending it to your business, even though you say you're not monetizing from it. By you, it can, is it confusing people to think we're connected somehow? So that's why you go to court and say, and usually if you have it, that's why I brought up in the chat, AndyWarhol.com. Larry Fisher has that pointed to. It looked like one of those old fan sites that we used to see, and it's like from 2009, he hasn't updated it, and it's like got bad links, and it looks, but my point is because there's very limited things you can do with it, and you really can't go and tell them you want to buy it, but yet if they approach, the estate approaches, certainly he can say that. So it's like,
if they approach you, it's a different thing. Yeah, but that's the thing. Oh, and that's not even necessarily true. If you ask for a ridiculous sum of money too, that could be held against you as well, right? Depending what you're asking for. But that's the thing, is that and that's why these domains, it could be these huge celebrities. There's no value in these domains because nobody can ever put ads on them, right? Or use them in any way to make it seem like it's related to that celebrity at all. Again, if it's John Smith, then you could probably get away with it because it's a very, very generic name, right? But that's the issue with first name, last names, right? Is like, where do you draw the line? That's why for me, I always try to stay. I have two rules of thumb when it comes to first name, last name. And again, it's not to stomp on anybody. Like when I first started domain investing, I saw something like, oh, interesting. I grabbed a couple, whatever it is. I since let them expire. But it's because I didn't inform myself. I didn't think about, is it right? Is it not right? And whatever it is. And and so, but however, like I have a couple of dead people, right? In my mind, like nothing wrong with holding domain names of dead people, famous dead people, like whatever, some people argue, well, the estate and this and that. I'm like, I don't, it's like a person's dead. They can't take advantage of the name anymore. Right. And so to me is an exception that I find, whether legally or not. Again, I'm not a lawyer, whether legally right or not, I don't know, but ethically, I don't have any issues with dead people. And so anyhow. Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to say a couple comments to Chuck saying, if we don't answer these complaints, we can get bullied. And the truth is, it's like a gift card. Yeah, you buy them and some people don't use them and the companies know it. So they do know. Most of the time people don't respond. And then people don't respond, they start doing it more and more. And it's like, sometimes you can be, that's I know it's all individual, but listen, I've seen all the responses. I read it, but I can sound just as smart as a lawyer. I could, if I really wanted, I could fool people. I mean, the thing is, it's you don't want to make, even the lawyers can make mistakes, but unless you feel like you're well-versed and you have nothing to lose, your domain, but it's almost like, I just agree with that. And I wanted to say, Ellen also made a comment about the first and last name. If the registrant can't prove some kind of nexus with the name, now that's how they're going to say, well, how do you prove that? And if it's something you read a book a long time ago, you can't remember the name of the book, but the character in it was that name. And just saying it's hard there's going to be all sorts of ways to get around that. But I do say the people that are doing it normally are successful because you're selling it for less than a UDRP would cost. So that's the thing, that. Yeah. So, and it's like, I'm with you. I'm like, listen, everything, there's different times when you're a domainer that you're doing different things to monetize. And if that's something that's effective for you and legal.
But here's the thing is that, so you're charging less than UDRP, but it's still not right. And it still gives us a bad name. That's my issue, is that those small little things, sure, you're making a little bit of money here or there, but it's hurting us as an industry, right? And it really is. But again, like it depends on the name and the specifics and all that stuff. I don't want to dump on anybody who's doing it, because it depends on the name, right? Every case is different, but it's just that to me is like, that's why days like today are so important, right? Because it's, people need to know. As a domain investor, you need to know the basics of trademark law. Unfortunately, it's just the reality, because if you're doing things wrong, it affects us all as an industry. It hurts me, it hurts you, it hurts everybody listening, it hurts anybody watching on YouTube who are not domain investors yet who want to become domain investors, right? And basically it's like every time we reach out with one of our domains or we have an incoming thing, it's like, okay, the first person the potential buyer is thinking is, this guy's a scammer, this guy's a cyber squatter, this guy's a this guy's a that, so it's important, ignorance is not an acceptable excuse in my mind, just because you didn't know. Yeah, I mean, when you start off the first few months, no problem, but at a certain point you need to be responsible and inform yourself, and that's all I have to say about that.
It's not required.
Shaking my finger,
It's not required to know all the stuff about trademarks to be a business person or to be a domain investor, but it's like there's less to learn than when you're learning to drive a car and all those different things in a car, meaning you just know the basics. And like I tell people, is working backwards, where if you want to know personally, if you own any trademarks, if you're a business person, you're going to have trademarks for services and products that you have. So now let's go right to, where do you make your money and how do you make your money off what service or what product or what stuff you're doing? And now we can start going, that's where you established some common law trademarks of your own. And let's find it, we can go right from where the money, because that's where we can, basically, we know that's how we can get them registered. You can, and when you have to prove that you have a common law mark, you got to show that, you got to show you're doing business as that. So when they say doing business right, but I just think it's almost basic business. So learn a couple of those things, like you learn to drive the car. You don't have to learn everything, every dashboard thing, but there's the brake, there's the gas, here's the steering. You got to look 5 things. Well, just 5 trademark things. And now, plus you can have conversations with people like, it's not that, I used to be a stockbroker, 91, I think 2, 3, 4, 5. People would open up that page. Remember that one page of the newspaper with all the stocks?
Oh, yeah.
And some people are like, they can't understand it. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
These brokers, it's stupid. Most stockbrokers can't even do math. But I'm saying that's so intimidating, that big old page of stuff, that people should have said, hold on, don't let this be a waste of your paper, even though it's a waste of your paper. We'll tell you what it is. You know what I mean? All this different. I mean, it's just silly. And it's like, you can understand. But then they like when you don't understand, like with the stock market, because it's so overvalued, ballooned up, doesn't make sense, that now they're thinking, if you want to try to figure out the inside of that, which is a real one. Guys in the finance business know none of it makes sense, but that's not about, it's about, the Board API Club, boom, I said it doesn't make sense, the finances behind it, but it doesn't mean that the man can't push it up. The same thing happening, it's the scarcity of that type of thing is exactly what the Asian market did to certain types of domain names. And now you got not just the domainers that we know, but all the people in that Board API Club, they're doing it, they're pressing and manipulating all the prices of that. But I mean, interesting, because it's like these markets, mini markets, but interesting. Today was fantastic. I mean, you called it. It was good. And the guys are so nice about, if you want to reach out to them.
There's so much, they're just, all 3 of them are just genuinely like just fun individuals, and it's just, that's the thing, you wouldn't expect that from 3 lawyers, but 3 lawyers walk into a Zoom room, that's the joke of the day. And then craziness ensues. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop the recording now. I want people to come on. The last couple of days we had some fun after parties, so I'm gonna stop the recording and bring everybody up. So those of you who want to come join us in the last 2 days, go to DomainPodcast.com. That forwards to the DomainSocial.com. It's the same thing. The Domain Podcast is going to be a new brand, but the old website is still there until the end of this week. Register there. You'll be on the mailing list for the final 2 days of this week, and then anything I do in the future. Before starting a session, I send out an email with the link for you to join us in Zoom. So again, go to DomainPodcast.com, sign up there, sign up for the Domain Social, and then what else? You can rewatch all today and all previous days. Go to live.domainerweek.com. That goes to the YouTube channel. You want to see the schedule, domainerweek.com. And then again, the purpose of this week is if you've learned anything, if you found it useful in any way, this is a lot of energy in my part, but it's all free. It's been my pleasure to do for the community and all my friends I've made in this industry. But if you have found value in this week, please go to donate.domainerweek.com. I've set up a GoFundMe page there. The funds raised you'll see on that page. Same thing at domainerweek.com, the top of the page, one of the squares there. It shows what the charities that are going to be benefiting from the donations there. If you want, donate directly to the charities there. That's totally fine too. Let me know if this week inspired you to do that. That would be great. But I know as probably for some of you for tax purposes, a direct contribution would be great. And then most importantly, today of all days, if you're a serious domain investor, join the ICA, internetcommerce.org. Go join the ICA. Todd's a member. I'm a member. There's the list of domainers is quite extensive of people who are well known in this industry. And $25 a month, it helps. And again, if you can't do that and you still want to help, contact me. I'll find ways of doing it. Events like this, I need help for. This last 2 weeks, there's a little bit of chaos. I wasn't able to respond to people who wanted to help out as much as I could because I didn't have time to explain things and then do them. But if I ever do something like this in the future, which a fun panel like this, get these three guys on to be like, maybe we'll come up and a couple of us will with domains and we'll ask them, is it trademark infringement or not? And all these things we can do. So if joining the ICA is not within your means, contact me. Say I want to help out, the legal part of the industry, whatever it is, and I'll figure out, point you in the right direction. The ICA can sure use some help with stuff, and just more than anything else, the easiest thing you can do. If you see myself tweet an event like this, or the ICA tweet something about something they're doing, retweet. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. If you see me post on LinkedIn, retweet there. LinkedIn, I don't know what the term is, but share that. That's it. Share. I'm getting to the end of my week. Actually, already 7 days. So the week is over, but now it comes with 2 bonus days. And on that note, thanks everybody for watching. I think I had to say everything I had to say. I'm going to close the YouTube. So goodbye to YouTube here. There we go. Pull this out.